12 miles west of Wilson is the Niagara Bar, where the Niagara River flows into Lake Ontario. It's the perfect storm of nutrient-rich water, which attracts schools of baitfish and big salmon. And they're here for one reason: to pack on the pounds. You won't find a higher concentration of kings in the Great Lakes than right here, right now. The fishing can be challenging. Unpredictable currents can throw off your presentation. My clients expect me to put fish in the boat. Knowing the speed and temperature at depth is always important, but here it's imperative. If you don't have a fish hawk, you're dead in the water. Now, Fishhawk is charging ahead. The new Lithium series incorporates 4 decades of experience with the lithium power anglers expect in modern electronics. The maintenance-free probe is 40% smaller and has an internal lithium polymer battery that provides a weekend's worth of fishing on a single charge. Wireless smart charging recharges the probe in minutes. Optional Bluetooth communication and probe depth are also available. I wouldn't dream of fishing without a Fishhawk. And now with the new Lithium series, Fishhawk electronics are better than ever.
Good evening. Welcome to the Great Lakes Fishing Podcast Roadshow at the Greater Niagara Fishing Expo. This is segment 6, and I'm joined tonight by my co-host, Captain Sergio Ferreira from Trolling Real Deep Fishing.
Chris, great to see you.
Hey, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank
Good
you.
to have you.
Yeah.
And Sergio is a Canadian captain, and you fish out of a couple different ports. Tell us a little bit about your charter.
So we started in the spring. We started at St. Catharines Marina. We'll be there from April to the end of May. That is 200 Broadway Street. If anybody curious, people mix that up a lot with Port Dalhousie. So usually got to make sure it's St. Cat's Marina, Broadway Street there. And then we move over to our home port at Bronte Outer Harbor. And then we go from there from May to the end of September, mid-September, depending on the weather. Like last year, September is a pretty good month, except the last couple of weeks where the winds were pretty high from the east. And that pretty much makes the water muddy, and goodbye season.
All done. Hey, our hashtag tonight to get in for the drawing for the Fishhawk swag package, it's going to be Captain Sergio. Hashtag Captain Sergio will get you entered into the drawing for the Fishhawk swag package for tonight's show. Sergio, tell me a little bit. So you fish out of 2 different harbors. You fish out of Bronte, and then you fish out of
St. Cat's Marina.
St. Cat's first, and then up to Bronte.
Yep.
Tell me the differences. Why do you make that move?
So as you know, the south side is always going to be the hottest in the spring.
That's St. Cat's.
Yeah, you got St. Cat's there, the nice green water, beautiful silver kings are there. You got rainbows there. It's a great start. As the migration starts, they start to go east. They make their circle around east. So then by June is a pretty good month there, Bronte. We have a lot of rainbows. You start to see the smaller shakers and cohos, things like that. Not a problem. July, August, we got the Bronte Creek there. So you got the big stagers. You want to play with big boys. It's July, August is the month to be at Bronte. That's where you want to be. That is a prime location.
So a lot of the guys that we've had on this week fish out of Wilson or maybe Olcott, and they're kind of on the to the east of that Niagara flow. So when that Niagara flow comes out there, does it turn to the west as well to St. Cat's the same way, or is it very different?
It really depends.
Okay.
Some years you'll check out Modest, the satellite imagery. You'll see it go straight east, straight west. You'll see it split sometimes. It really depends on the winds and the currents. As you saw this winter, we didn't really have a real winter. It's pretty mild throughout the whole season this year. So it's really hard to predict. I think, though, that this year we're going to have a good class of fish, regardless of how things turn out this year. I see it really big. Because if you look the last couple of years, for example, the Great Ontario Salmon Derby, you're starting to see those numbers push up into the higher 30s, and that's a good sign to see.
Yeah.
The last 2-3 years, if guys were out there fishing, you'd see a big increase in shakers. that's a really good class of fish to see that within 2-3 years you're gonna have a good mature king. And like I said, it's gonna be a great turnout this year. I can just see it.
Yeah, it's kind of the strange thing. It's, I live in northern Minnesota, and for our fish to get big in Minnesota, they have to get old. And when you start talking about salmon fishing, you're like, yeah, it's a 3-year-old. It's fully mature, and it's just funny the life cycle of those fish.
It is.
And how fast they grow. And you're like, this is a year class. We've got all these shakers this year, so in 2 years we're gonna have some mega fish out there. Just
I
so
better
crazy.
believe it.
Even when you think about comparing it to a lake trout, that again takes many, many years to mature, just how fast these salmon put the weight on.
Phenomenal fish. They're powerful, beautiful fish to look at when they're silver. You catch the odd one in the fall tuxedo, they look great as well. Like, you never understand the science behind those kings. They're phenomenal.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that early season fishing out of St. Cat's.
Yeah.
What are you doing there? What are kind of your bread and butter plays?
My
that
bread
time of year?
and butter place for me is I love my big planer boards out with some Walleye cranks. Gotta love those out there. Some beautiful spoons. Mixed veggies is a great one. Your smaller flies for cohos up top once again on your weighted steel, things like that. The simpler stuff will start getting kings right away. You go with lead core, weighted steel, the spring there with your big boards, or even your small offshore boards, inline boards, you're going to produce fish, hands down, not a problem.
Mhm.
Long lines, green water there. As soon as you find that green water, start setting up your gear. You're going to be on them in no time.
It sounds like you're really targeting the entire water column there.
Yeah. So as you're chartering, you want to keep those rods moving while start targeting the bigger fish as well, right? So you want to run a multi-class spread just to keep things going, keep everybody enticed, keep everybody happy.
And how is that different than, maybe if you're tournament fishing when you're out fishing with a charter?
So for tournament fishing, we're going to be running things really down low and tight. We're not too worried about what's happening on the top of the water column. Because as you know, those big kings, they're going to be down deep. That's why they call them cold water kings, right? But it also depends too which time of the year you're doing the tournament, because these kings might be coming up high. And that's where the fish hawk comes into play and tells you, hey, 44 degrees is up here, 44 degrees is down there. So you kind of got to play with your equipment on your boat and see where you want to be for the big kings. You know they're going to come out of their temperatures to feed, but they're going to go back down. So you know that your big kings are always going to be down deep.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about when you're doing this in the spring. What are the kind of temperatures you're looking for? What are some, when you get out to somewhere, you go, all right, this is the spot. What are you looking for?
As long as I'm starting around the 40s mark, I'll start spreading my gear on the 40s. I look for the green water as well. And around the 40s, you're going to start seeing activity. You're going to start seeing fish there. And it's like, do they want a fast troll? Do they want a slow troll? You're not really 100% sure what's happening at that time. So that's why you want to have your multi-rods set up and work your program from there.
If you got any questions for Captain Sergio Ferreira, go ahead and put them in the comments, and we'll get to those questions here. We're going to have just Sergio on for the next 12 minutes, and then we'll be bringing on our next guest right after that.
For sure.
So you make that move from St. Cat's up to Brownie, and when does that, you do that by calendar, or you do that kind of by feel as the things happen?
By feel and by calendar as well, because I want to go back to my home ground, start pre-fishing, seeing how things are. Every year, fishing's different, locations are different. So it's nice to get back there a week or two before my charters on that side of the lake start, just to see what's happening there. So you're not going out there with no information, nothing that's going to surprise you. You need to be ready what's going on out there on that side.
The Bronte is kind of halfway between Hamilton, which, if you don't know the area, it's basically kind of like the crack.
The little funnel, funnel there.
Where Lake Ontario kind of points out, in Toronto. You're basically halfway between that Hamilton and Toronto.
Yeah, so we goes Hamilton, Oakville, and then you have Mississauga, which is Port Credit, and then you're up to the Toronto, which is your Bluffers and Ashbridges that everybody knows about.
Yeah. Tell me about the structure and what it's like to fish around Bronte.
Bronte's great because as soon as you leave, for example, at a fisherman's pier, you can pretty much start fishing right away. The water drops pretty quick. It's more of a mud composition over there. So everybody knows that if you start going in shallow, coming in, doing the weave, you're going to hit fish because they love to bury the mud, especially when it comes to stager season. They're going to go nice down low on that mud. So you run those lines like your 80s, 90s, 40s, 100s, you're going to catch a good king on that side.
So you getting out there in late spring, early summer. What's the program like that time of year?
So when I start going over to Bronte, now I'm going to bring out the spin doctors with the good flies. I'm going to start running meats, MC rockets. I'm going to start running the bigger spoons, because the bigger spoons, for example, I use a lot of triple threats. So I'm going to be using the triple threat spoons on my spread. And then start basically introducing your big fish program, because you know it's time to play with those guys there.
You said your good flies. Tell me what your good flies are.
My
People
good
want to
flies.
know.
People want to know, eh? So I'm a big Mirage guy.
Okay.
I use a lot of my products from GRC, which the booth is just around the corner there. You guys get Mirage flies. He's got his glow flies with the E-chip for a lot of you guys that use Pro Troll flashers. Pat has actually flies now for the last 2 years that have the E-chip technology in it. And let me tell you, some days they work phenomenal. And like I said, I'm a big fan of using Mirages, glows. If it's going to glow, it's going to go. I can't forget that riddle, right?
Right.
I like my dark greens as well. Like green's a phenomenal color on that side. You can't go wrong with blue. You want to catch some rainbows up high. You want to use orange flies, which Pat produces as well. A lot of spoons that people know is the mixed veggie. Pat has now started making mixed veggie, custom painted meat rigs. It's been working great. We had those on trial last year, and it did really, really well.
Tell me, you said the E-chip. What is that all about?
So the E-chip is something developed by Pro Troll that emits a little bit of electricity in the water, like a little combination of voltage, and imitates a cloud of bait fish, which then the salmon sensory feels that in the water, and they come in for striking thinking it's bait.
Interesting. So tell me a little bit more about GRC trolling flies. I know that's a company that you work with pretty closely. How did they get started?
So Pat used to be a truck driver. He started hand tying stuff on the side. Slowly from hand tying, he started making an online web store, which is grctrollingflies.com. Started having a little combination there. Within the last few years, he's got a big product line. He works with a lot of tack shops, like everybody knows Sonny's. On the American side. On the Canadian side, you usually find him at Angling Outfitters in Woodstock, which is one of my great stores that I like going to. You'll find... what else are you going to find? You're going to find that he started making a lot of his own custom meat heads as well. So he's got his own style of meat head that don't require no tuning. He's got nice chrome ones that if you bend, the chrome doesn't crack or flake off like the older days. You know, times change, technology's changed. Things come a long way for fishing.
Yeah. Tell me about kind of you talked a little bit about your favorite flies from Bronte, but what are some of the flies there at GRC as people are walking around the show here this weekend? What are the hot sellers? What are people going after?
The hot sellers have been the 6-inch Mirage Glow, which actually we sold out of them within the first couple of hours in the morning. The 6-inch fly, Pat makes the Magnum size flies. They are phenomenal for stagers. That really gets them going on his spin doctor on the aggressive setting because it whips it pretty hard. So they come out an aggressive bite. The other one that's really hot is the Captain Crush. So it's like a green tinge with some clear and black dots. That's a phenomenal paddle as well, or not paddle, fly. I'm getting all excited talking about all these colors. I'm all over the place.
So obviously that Mirage, if it sold out that quickly, people came in here looking for it. What is it about that fly that makes it great?
It's the way that Pat made a combination of the glow and he made it UV, so it's the best of both worlds. So in the morning it's going to glow. Sun's out, it's going to be shining through the UV in the water column. Like, you can't go wrong with that. And the other benefit, too, of running flies is you don't have to be as proactive checking the meat. How many times have you gone fishing and you're like, oh, shoot, the meat fell out of my meat rig because you don't know it ripped. You had a bad strip. Everybody has a bad strip here and there. It happens, right? Poor brining. It's been used a couple times. It breaks. Now you're seeing streakers on your sonar and you're like, what's going on? And if some guys are very proactive in bringing their gear up to check if the meat is still there, some guys don't. Like I was just in Cuba a month ago. Great guys to fish with, great guys. But we were trolling. We ended up going on an 8-hour trip, and they didn't check their bait probably like 3.5 hours in. He brought everything in, and none of it had the meat on anymore. And we're like, you know, that's a big thing with running meat, as opposed to a body bait. Yeah, I'll probably snag something on the water, but meat's very important. You have to stay on top and check it. You have to.
So when you're running meat, how often are you checking?
I usually check mine every half an hour, 45 minutes. And sometimes sooner. If I'm seeing too many streakers and I know it's one of my trusted rigs that I use all the time and it's not hitting, I'm definitely going to pull it in and see if I caught some weeds. You know, what happens after a windy day from the east blow, or did I have a bad strip? Which, like I said, everybody has a bad strip. It happens, right? So those are my telltales right there, is streakers, and I'd say every half an hour, 45 minutes, I'm going to check it right away.
We were talking about flies earlier. What's kind of your favorite paddle to run with the flies that you're running?
I love the White Lightning I'm a big Spin Doctor fan, for starters. I love the Spin Doctors, but I also like the new stuff that came to the market a couple years ago, Triple Threat, another Canadian source. They have the fish style OK paddles, and they use Hypervis tape. It has a great glow to it. Honestly, we haven't seen too many of it, but it's going to be a big thing. Their colors that they use with the Hypervis on Triple Threat's products has a bright, vibrant color. They got great glow patterns. So I like to use a paddle that has a good whip to the fly. Like, I want to keep that fly active. But sometimes being aggressive on your presentation isn't always the key. Sometimes they want a stealth presentation. So that's when I like to switch over to my Spin Doctors, because you can move the pin over on the back of the paddle and have more of a stealthy presentation with not such a strong whip and a roll. So those are the things you got to watch out for.
If people are kind of first trying to get into the paddle and fly thing, how do they know, okay, this one's more aggressive, this one's a little more subtle look? Is there a way to check that when they're dropping things down and taking a look at it?
What they could do if they want, to starters, that way you never make a mistake, is put it down a foot and a half, hold your rod in the water there, your troll speed. You're going to be able to see if your fly is whipping really hard, if the paddle's pulling really hard. Those are going to be your telltale signs that tell you exactly what kind of presentation you want. And that's usually tell clients who come out with me like, hey, what do you know you're going to use today? So I generally use the trip before that I know was working, but I'll never put out all aggressive or all stealth. I'm going to have a combination of both on the other side of the boat. Sometimes I'll mix them on the side because, as you know, you always have different currents on the different sides of the boat. So sometimes the stealth is firing, you turn around, the aggressive is going to fire. That doesn't help you. So I like to mix it around because you want the fish to tell you what they want so you know what you're going to present to them.
Very cool. So we've been talking to a lot of captains here this weekend, and a lot of them are guys that either have gray hair or no hair on top of their head.
I think I got lucky.
You got plenty of hair. It's dark and lustrous. You're a young man. Tell me a little bit about, it's great to have these guys that come in, and we had Bob Songen and Vince Pirlioni on, and those guys are both putting in their 40th season, and it's fun to talk to those guys and be around those guys. But being a young captain like yourself, tell me just a little bit about what that's like to be out there, and obviously a little bit different experience than what some of those other guys are looking at right now.
It's pretty funny, actually. So in my first year chartering, I was going out to meet my clients at our meetup spot, and they're like, oh, we're looking for Captain Sergio. And I'm like, hey, guys, great to meet you. And they're like, you're the captain? Yeah. They're like, oh. I'm like, yeah, I'm the captain. So they get talking and stuff like that. We go fishing, and they're looking at me like, this guy really know what he's doing? Mm-hmm. But I grew up fishing a lot, so I always tell people, when you go out fishing with your grandparents or friends that have been doing this for years, put your phones down and just watch, just learn, just observe it all. And if you're the type of person that wants to learn and you ask people the right questions, they will teach you. Like, I've always been a big fan that if people grab the sport and they all work together and the sport grows, it's great for everybody. So maybe you're not doing very well with me, but the next guy, you're having a great trip. I'm glad. Like, it has to be a sport where everybody teams up because it's better for the economy. It's better for the fish. It helps stimulate the economy in many ways. Things like that, right?
Yeah. Well, very good. If anyone has any questions for Captain Sergio as we go on, go ahead and drop them in. And again, tonight's hashtag to enter the drawing is hashtag Captain Sergio. So we've got 17 entries in there so far. So go ahead and get entered for the drawing when you got an opportunity. Doesn't matter if you're on Facebook or YouTube. And if you've entered once, you don't need to enter again. It's only going to count your vote one time. Our next guest is hanging out here in the green room and ready to rock. It's Bill Sweitzer. Come on in, Bill. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. It's good to have you.
Good to see you
Good to see you again.
Hey, Bill.
Hey, Bill Sweitzer.
Nice to meet you, Sergio.
We had Bill on last year and just wanted to bring you back again this year. Last year we talked a lot about the canal fishery program, that flooding. Let's just touch on that for a few minutes just to refresh people.
Gotcha.
And then I want to get into some of the other stuff after that. So
Cool.
go ahead and give us
So the main reason why we're here at the show is, the Erie Canal's been around for almost 200 years, but just recently we started to do careful releases from the Erie Canal into the Western New York tributaries, mostly Ontario Lake or Lake Ontario tributaries, and we're really kind of bolstering or enhancing the fishing there. Our tagline is more water equals more fish. The salmon runs and the brown trout runs and those already kind of world-class tributaries don't always have consistent water. So we're able to kind of maintain a base flow for those tributaries by careful releases from the Erie Canal. So we're, with this 200-year-old waterway, we're enhancing the fishing. The trout are swimming up a little bit further in the tributaries, making the fishery a little better. When there's rain events or storms, we can hold back the water a little bit. So it's we're mostly concerned about navigation on the canal, but we're actually helping an industry and our fellow, Western New York neighbors, and it's really turned out pretty great. This year was a particularly dry year, and we heard from folks on the ground that the tributaries that we don't drain in were having tough times and not a lot of fishermen, not a lot of fish. Whereas we were able to give flows to these other streams and the fishing was good. Parking lots were full.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool to run this, the waterway that connects the Great Lakes to the Hudson River, but now we're enhancing another industry. And fishing industry, of course, makes me happy because I get to bring my fishing pole to work now.
Right. Yeah. You're a big fly fish fisherman, right?
Yeah. I've closer to me. I'm from the Lake George region, Albany, Saratoga. So I would come out to Oswego Canal, which connects to the Erie Canal, and Pulaski, and fish the salmon runs there. Out past Rochester was a little too far for me until I got involved with the canal system, and now I come out and the fishing is always a little bit better or a little bit more predictable now that we can help them with the water levels.
Yeah. And what you're doing basically is you're like simulating a storm essentially.
We can simulate a rain event, or say like this year was a good example. Season was here, but the salmon weren't ready. They were kind of grouping around in the lake, but they weren't coming up the stream. We gave them a little mortar. We raised the gates and simulated that salmon run. So when there's not the rain event and we need it, we can kind of simulate a rain event.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So the other thing that you're doing this week is you're doing a seminar called Canals 101. Tell me a little bit about this.
So we were here last year. We're talking about the program, and we got a lot of questions about kayaking, a lot of questions about, where can you fish? And, hey, I know the Erie Canal is around, but does it really still go to Albany? Can you really do this? And the canal system is 4 canals, the Erie Canal, the Oswego Canal, the Cayuga-Seneca Canal, which connects the 2 largest Finger Lakes, and then the Champlain Canal, which connects the Hudson River to Lake Champlain. So we figured, why don't we do like a Canals 101? Start with, there's 4 of them, right? And it's 524 miles of connected waterway. When they dug it 200 years ago, it connected the Great Lakes to the Atlantic Ocean via the Hudson River. And so we start there, and then I start going into, where the boat launches are. And yes, you can kayak, and we'll open a lock for any boat, right? We'll open a lock for 1 kayak. And then I go into fishing spots, and, we got a lot of good resources out there for folks. So it's kind of a Canals 101, real general, history lesson, and get your gear, get your fishing pole, get in your kayak, and come see us.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, when I was up here a couple years ago fishing out of Wilson, we were driving back through, and we drove through Lockport, and you see it, and it's like, it looks like it was made 200 years ago. I mean, it's got that just look to it, like this thing has been here a long time.
So the great thing about Lockport, it's funny you say that, is you really get a glimpse of Clinton's ditch era. It was the flight of 5, right? It was 5 locks in a row, like steps to get up out of the lake, over the Niagara Escarpment into Lake Erie. So it's 5 locks there. Those are being rebuilt, or right next to it is the modern, quote unquote, modern day locks that are only 100 years old.
Right.
But they're with steel and wood, and the other ones were all wood back in the day. So it's you got the historic lock district right there, a couple of museums, a great ice cream shop, good brewery right there. and you really get a glimpse of today's canal, which is really a museum in itself. It's 100 years old, but you also get the Flight of Five, which is, engineering marvel back for, 1825 to figure out how the heck are we need to get to that lake,
Right.
but it's 100 feet of solid rock. How are we going to do it? And they figured it out.
Yeah. How do locks work?
Great question.
I had the exact same question.
So it's here we are at Canals 101, right?
Here we go.
So locks work the same way they did 2,000 years ago. It's Leonardo da Vinci invention, right?
Was he a Ninja Turtle?
right. And it is it's funny when we do education programs. We make all kinds of jokes. The kids don't get them, but the teachers do.
Right.
I'm like, come on, who invented the gravity lock? He had a long beard. He painted ceilings. He was a big inventor. And I'll go, Leonardo DiCaprio? No. But gravity locks. No pumps or hydraulics. It's all the weight of the water or gravity itself. So you're always taking water from the higher elevation to fill the lock, and then when you're draining the lock, it just goes back in the lower elevation. Just drain it back into the river or lake, right? So it is underground tunnels, and the gates open. Let's say you're a kayak, right? Or let's say you're a big ship coming from Duluth, Minnesota, right? Come into the locks, they'll shut the gates behind you, then you're in the chamber. It's really like a bathtub, and there's drains underneath the water where you can't hear. So the draining is the easy part to get, right? Pull the plug actually, or we lift the valves to let the water drain back into the canal, and the boat slowly goes down. The higher we raise the valves, or the quicker we raise the valves, is the speed of the boat. All our locks are 300 feet long and 45 feet wide, so every 10 feet is about 1 million gallons of water. So let's say in Lockport, there's 2 locks right there. They're 24 and a half feet both. So it's about 50 million gallons of water we're releasing, right?
Wow.
But again, no pumps, not electricity. There's no energy being wasted. It's just opening a drain.
Mm-hmm.
The other way, this is the harder one to get. So when you're lower in a boat, you're just popping the drain, and it's like your bathtub. It's like watching a boat in the bathtub. It's just drain, and finally it's down, and the gate's open, and you can go.
Okay.
Come in the other way. Gate shut behind you. We shut the valve so no more water can get in. And then we open another set of valves in the upper level of it that are connected to higher elevation. And the gravity or the weight of that water pushes down and fills up from the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an elevator for boats, or a water elevator.
Reverse dominoes.
Yeah. And it's sometimes you're in there and it's such a simple concept it's hard to explain or hard to get. But when you're in there and you see where the water level was and you get drained down and the gates open, then on your way back you're like, oh, I get it now, And it's these are 100-year-old mechanisms, old brass fittings and all that, and it's a little tiny DC motor that does it too. It's all DC power for us. Leonardo da Vinci, 2,000 years later. The other invention is really the miter gates. There's so much water pressure behind that.
Yeah, that's got to be a good seal.
Yeah, it's got to be a good seal. And the way those gates are mitered, the more water is, the tighter the seal it is. Really, again, simplistic, but really ingenious.
So how long does it take to fill?
So really good question. So some of our locks are only 5 or 6 feet. Even though it's only 5-6 feet change in elevation, the boat can't do it or can't go up whitewater. So we'll only lift you 5 minutes. That one takes about 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Say in Little Falls, but the middle of the state, there's a set of falls there. It's a 40-foot lift. So that one takes about 15-20 minutes. So
pretty fast.
Yeah. And if you get a new boater in there, we'll open the valve slowly so there's not a lot of churning in that. Maybe the lock tender's talking to him to kind of talk him through it.
Yeah.
Because it is intimidating sometimes, especially if you come in and you're in a little boat and you're down 40 feet and you're looking up there.
And you're like, oh, what's going on here?
So it depends on the lift of the lock, but no more than 15 minutes.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been looking at, and I'm just a boat nerd, and been looking at doing the Great Loop.
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been watching all these Great Loop videos, and I watch the guys going through the locks, and I've been watching a lot of people coming down the Mississippi. So how are those locks different than the locks that you have in New York?
Gotcha. So they're really similar. Probably the biggest difference is they're just larger. Like the locks coming out of Chicago to get into the Mississippi are just bigger than ours. But it's the same way. There are hydraulic locks and some different operating locks, but basically it's the same. They're going to fill that up to raise you and dump it to lower you. So they really work the exact same. Not sure specifically which locks are down there, but really the main difference is just size. They work like the Panama lock is a gravity lock. You know, it's works just like ours, only you can put humongous freighters in there, where ours are only 300 feet long.
Yeah.
So the great thing about the loop is you get that whole Mississippi experience, right? And you come around the Gulf Coast and you come up the intercoastal, you have that whole ocean experience. But then when you hit New York City, come in to New York City Harbor, then you're in the Hudson River. The Hudson Valley is beautiful, right? And you come up to just about Albany, and then you take a right on the Erie Canal, and then that's a whole different boating experience. You go from all these little communities and villages along upstate New York that would only be there today because they dug the canal 200 years ago, and you see a great part of New York State, or really even like America, that you don't see by driving the highway. You know, I tell everybody, it's like Erie Canal is the fastest way to slow down. You know, don't see it doing 75 miles on the New York State Thruway. Get off it and take the roads or get on a boat. So then you get this canal experience, and you get to Buffalo over the Welland Canal, and then you're in the Great Lakes, and that's a whole nother experience. So it's Great Loop is, you know, you need time and money, but it's a really cool thing, and we're really lucky to have the Erie Canal be a part of it.
Yeah. So tell me about that. Then you see these folks coming through to do the Great Loop. What are some of your experiences with seeing some of those boats and just some of those people that are on that trip?
My first week on the job, I was in Little Falls, New York, actually, on this boat. It said Tennessee on it. I said, Tennessee, wow, that's so cool. How'd you get here? He said, well, you know, we started this, my wife and I. And I said, no, but how'd you get here? Like, when did you take your boat out and drive it? Like, where did you start from? He said, I started from Tennessee. I said, what do you mean? The Tennessee River connects to the Mississippi. He was on the Great Loop. And I'm like, what? And he said, you know, I got the uniform on. He says, buddy, you can get from anywhere in the world, you can get to where we're standing. You know, I'm in landlocked New York, and central New York, you know. And so, you know, that was what I had to learn first, right? The thing about the Great Loop is you see people from all around the world doing it. They come in, they come up, and it is part of their trip. And they've done a little research, so they know where to stop in the canal. And we have really cool boats, really cool places from all around the world that stop in these little villages that are really kind of authentic, quaint, upstate villages that you might not see too many other places in the world, right? And they spend their money at the coffee shops or the brewery, and every village in town does some kind of canal fest, or there's always like a concert series or something like that. So there's fun stuff to do, and they spend a little money in town, and the town depends on them. And so that's why we keep the Erie Canal open. That's one of the big reasons. Those Great Loopers bring a lot of business. When we've had a couple like flooding situations where you do a little work in the lock, and the loopers will be stuck in a place, they don't care. They love it because they get to see more. Or they'll rent a car and go somewhere. Before the days of Uber, it was like we were like, hey, you know, can we help you out? Do you want to go someplace else? Now they're gone. You know, their boats, you know, and the repair will be fixed. They're not back yet. A couple of years ago with COVID, we had folks go into the Finger Lakes and Cayuga and Seneca Lake, great fisheries, beautiful lakes, wineries everywhere. The loopers took kind of like a, you know, no, we're not going to go with, you know, this state restrictions or whatever it was, spend some time in the Finger Lakes. We're finding now through the Great Loop Association that more folks are planning maybe a couple more weeks on their trip to spend in the Finger Lakes, because if it wasn't for COVID, they would have never known the Erie Canal is connected to it. You know? The cool thing about the canal, you know, talking to folks that live out in the Great Lakes that might not have come this far east is, you know, we're connected to Lake Ontario and Lake Erie, right? But also Oneida Lake, great lake to see, very different warm water fishery. The two large Finger Lakes, Cayuga and Seneca, are beautiful, rolling vineyards and vines and all that, right? And then come all the way out east through the Mohawk, and you got Lake Champlain. You can get out, get your boat out up in Ticonderoga and put it in Lake George for a couple of days and that. It's a really great lake fishing, but you're really still on a canal trip.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and the cool thing, I mean, I'll sit there and watch them go through locks all day long, but no cost.
No cost. So it's free. It's New York built this waterway 200 years ago. We built it for New Yorkers, or built it for, you know, commerce back then. But we are run by the New York State Power Authority, which has 3 hydroelectric facilities on the system, and they produce electricity and sell it for money. And so that's where our funding comes from. So it's come see New York State, come go through the locks, go fishing, go kayaking. But it's a resource for us, for New Yorkers, but also for anyone else who wants to come and spend their money here too. But free all day.
Right. Yeah. Sergio, you got anything for Bill?
I'm not gonna lie to you, Chris. I think I want to take the Canals 101 course. Like, I'm totally interested in hearing all this. I'm hearing you talk about it. I'm like, okay, I got to do this. I got to sit through the seminar. I got to hear all this. This is.
Yeah,
I've
really
never been
cool.
through the locks ever before, so hearing all this is really cool because it's just more, like you're talking about. It's more than the locks. It's the little villages, the Finger Lakes. There's a lot more to it that a lot of people don't know about unless they sat there and have a good chat or did some research on their own. So I'm really intrigued about this.
Let me tell you, the another really cool thing that's going on now is, so next year is 2025. It is our 200th birthday. I keep saying 200-year-old waterway. We got another year, right? So next year, the bicentennial really is going to be this kind of culmination of celebrating all them towns and villages that I brag about for a living, right? Are all got really good plans to celebrate this thing, right? The World Canals Conference, Buffalo just won the bid. So in September of 2025, we're going to have the World Canals Conference there. The canal community globally will come there. A lot of really cool events coming to Buffalo Canal side. So if you're interested in canals, come see the course here. Come to our booth. We've got some great folks there. But it is the time, if you're going to come see the Erie Canal, it's a big birthday next year. So come see us.
I see a lot of fireworks coming out of that canal.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. They're actually, the first trip ever on the canal system was in 1825. Governor DeWitt Clinton, after they completed it, got in a boat called the Seneca Chief. And they sailed from Buffalo to the New York Harbor with 2 big casks of Lake Erie water. And they dumped it in New York Harbor, and it was the wedding of the waters. The idea, the dream that nobody could do was completed, and he married the waters, right? So in October of 2025, from Buffalo, they've rebuilt the boat. They've got a replica boat in the Buffalo Maritime Center.
That's going to be great to see.
It's almost finished. They're going to launch it this year, but they're going to recreate the trip. So that boat coming from town to town, maybe trolling on the way a little bit, is going to be a really cool thing in the fall of next year. So lots of fun stuff going on.
Yeah, I love the idea of just hanging out in the Finger Lakes. And, I've been watching these great loop videos. And like you said, these guys are coming down the Mississippi, and they're like, oh, we're in the Kentucky lakes now. We're going to hang out here for 2-3 weeks. These people are not in a hurry when they're coming through. But the other thing is, and we've been talking about the fun part of it, but it's a big time commerce thing. And you're dealing with ships coming through that are in a hurry, that are on business trips. Can you tell us about those?
Yeah, so we get a lot of folks coming through, especially in the early season, with boats that are purchasing the Great Lakes coming down, or people delivering boats and that. We still do have a pretty good amount of commercial shipping on the system itself. A lot of stone coming out of the quarries in the Adirondacks come down Lake Champlain. The Navy does a lot of business. The Navy has a facility in, I believe, Seneca Lake. So they've had a lot of things being shipped on the canal that way. General Electric, GE still has a plant in Schenectady. A lot of the big cooling stuff they can't put on a train or put on a road, we'll ship it. A few years ago, Rochester Brewery, Genesee Brewery, redid their tanks, and the beer tanks floated out by barge. It was a pretty big event. People were saying, sitting at watching locks. We had crowds at each of our locks as these beer tanks would come in, and they double locked them, which is a whole thing. You have the tugboat push it in, then you hand crank the next one in so you can lock 2 barges at the same time. It was a pretty cool thing. So there is a lot of shipping still going on, and with the shipping. And with kind of the utility of the canal, one of the things we're doing with this 200th birthday is we're commemorating the history and talking about what it did for America, what it did for New York State and all that, connected Great Lakes to the Atlantic and commerce started. But also we're saying, what can we do for the next century? Like what commercial shipping can we do? You can put 77 tractor trailers on one barge, right? Wow. Yeah. So it's environmentally friendly. It's just time sensitive. You're not going to be shipping, frozen fish, right? But if it's a time sensitive cargo, recyclable cargo, where we're looking into some things to kind of increase that, but yet stay
eco-friendly.
Eco-friendly, exactly. So commercial ship is still there. There's never really the canal is so long, and the locks are sometimes they're close to each other, sometimes they're farther away. You don't really get traffic, or we're very good about safety. Notice to mariners through an app and text and emails that, like, if there's a barge coming down or somebody that's quote unquote in a hurry, he's not going to bother kayakers or a small vessel or a fisherman or somebody who's wants to take their time.
Very good, Bill. We really appreciate you stopping by. Fun talking to you as always.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your time,
I'm
and thanks
really
for coming
glad
by.
that I get paid to talk about the Erie Canal. It's great to hear the feedback from the fishermen and local folks here. So really, thanks for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
Bill Sweitzer from New York State Canals, and our next guest is hanging out here right behind us, so we'll bring him in just a second.
Right.
Appreciate it, Bill. You got a question? Somebody popped on here for Captain Sergio. We'll get to that here in a little bit, but we want to bring in Steve Hurst first. We're ready for you, Steve. Have a seat.
Hi.
Welcome to the show, Steve Hurst, New York,
Good to see you
DC,
again.
Fisheries Bureau Chief.
It's been a couple of years.
Yeah, we had you on. You were actually like one of the first episodes of our show.
Really?
Yes, so I think
Heard
you were.
that one, right?
Yeah, you were. I think like in the top 10, first 10 episodes. You were on it, so pretty big deal, and it's good to have you back here again. I think we're on like episode almost 200 now, so it's been a while, and so it's good to have you back on again. You've had a busy weekend here. Tell me about what you've been doing here this weekend.
Yeah. So, you'll understand that they have, this is such a great show. I was talking to a bunch of guys from Canada last night, Ontario specifically, and they go, we have
That's
nothing.
one.
like
I'm one of them.
Yeah. All right. And they were so appreciative that this show has everything. And one of the key element of this show and why we're here is education.
Mhm.
Okay. And I think the organizers do a great job. So last night, as you know, kicked off the Walleye School and the Salmon School. And so last night, as we've been doing since 2019, I think, I don't remember all of a sudden anymore. We go to these socials and we take a very informal setting. We don't have any PowerPoint or anything. We just talk a little bit about the state of Lake Erie, state of Lake Ontario, and we spend time then with the anglers. And it's so good, Outreach is so important to us and so important to the Bureau of Fisheries. We really want people to not only know what we're doing, but we want them to understand what we're doing. And a lot of that's hard to do when you're sitting up in front of a crowd, in front of a state of the lake meeting. You're throwing PowerPoint slides at folks that are somewhat pretty technical, all right? And you're not telling the story. What we're able to do here through like the Salmon Social and Salmon School Social, and the Walleye School Social is tell the story. And a lot of it is, we clear up a lot of misconceptions, a lot of misinformation, all right? It's amazing because look, we're all fishermen, right? Fishermen talk to each other all the time.
All the time.
So if a fisherman's telling you something, it's the gospel, right?
Right.
It's the gospel. Well, it may be the only thing you have, all right? Because we can't be everywhere. We can't talk to every fisherman, but we try.
Right.
We try, and that's what the Bureau's been trying to do. And then today with our open house, right? It's a chance for folks to come and talk to a biologist or fisheries manager one-on-one, all right? There's a lot of people that are intimidated in these bigger settings,
Yeah.
I call them a stadium setting, and, they feel drowned out or they don't feel confident enough to ask the question where it's great too when you see someone with kids and everything and they come up as a family and they talk to us. And they talk to us, maybe it's about fishing opportunities or, hey, I heard you increase stocking by 10% this year. What's going on? Why did you do that? I listened to a talk a few years ago and it didn't look good and everything. Well, this is why. And telling that story is so important. All right, because I said this to you probably in our first podcast, right? Number one, we're always trying to manage people's expectations. And number two is, I still believe that fishermen are our greatest advocate for our freshwater resources. You can't advocate for what you don't understand.
100%.
All right, and so the more educated our anglers are, the greater advocacy, and you know what? It makes them better anglers in the long run too.
For sure.
That's kind of what we're doing here.
Yeah. We had Captain Bob Songen on a little bit earlier today,
I'm
and
sorry.
he had nothing but good things to say about you. And that's what he said. He's like, the DEC with the leadership that's there right now, he's like, they do such a good job of working with us and just working with the people that are out on the lakes and using them right now. And he's just like, I just hope that we can continue this kind of relationship because he felt like it was a really, really good relationship and that everyone is kind of working together to better things.
It is, and we've spent a lot of time building trust And we're way past that now, and we are truly working together. So I'm sure Bob talked to you about the Lake Ontario Fisheries Advisory Panel. It's like one of the greatest pleasures of this job is working with that group. It started out as a focus group, and it started out where we had tributary anglers, open lake anglers, and DEC, kind of like three legs to a stool here, all right? And there was a lot of disagreement between the tributary anglers and the open lake anglers, disagreement between them and DEC both, all right? And so we sat down and we did something really cool. We sat down in one meeting and I said, tell me everything that's on your mind. We wrote it all down. And we came up with what we called an action outcome chart. We addressed every one of those things over 3 years. We got through that, and after 3 years, I said, well, we got through everything, all right? So we said that once we got through it, we would disband. And almost everyone to a T in that room said, we need to keep this going. And I said, yeah, I agree with you. I think we should keep it going too. So we turned the focus group, Lake Ontario Focus Group, into the Fisheries Advisory Panel, and it's been great. I mean, they helped us develop our strategic stocking plan for the lake, all right, which was, in the old days, and it was a good plan. It worked for many, many years, of course. We just divvied up the stocking between the regional shoreline mileage, all right, prorated it, all right. We said, no, we think we can do better. So we came up with criteria for each species based on a management philosophy, a lot of back and forth, a lot of give and take, because we're trying to, like I said, an open lake fishery, a tributary fishery, which is all connected, right? So but getting us all on the same page and talking about that, instead of talking about it in silos, we ended up with a much better product. And the beauty of it is, right, we're practicing, this is the other thing you hear from me, adaptive management, all right? We know we're not hitting the mark 100% of the time. So like with this stocking strategy, we did it, we look at it, we reevaluate, say, you know what, maybe we better tweak that. Okay, let's get together and tweak it for continual improvement. So those are kind of the things we live by. And I don't know if you're aware about the parental-based tagging study that we're doing. Not study right now, the initiative that we're doing, where, our goal is to get a handle on the proportion of wild to stock fish in the lake by year class. We finally, I think, have got everybody convinced that we are managing a wild fish fishery. I think you and I talked about that a few years ago. That's supplemented with stock fish, and it's something that's on a balance, and we're managing it adaptively. We were looking at all these key indicators such as predator biomass, prey biomass, okay, weight of age 3 Chinooks, all these indicators. And one of them is this balance between stocked and wild fish. And as we get a better handle on that, we can say, wow, we got a really good year class of wild fish that came through. And this year, you know what, maybe we better back off on stocking, or vice versa. It may be, now we got 2 year classes in a row of wild fish. We think we can bump things up a little bit here to try, and we're never going to keep it totally stable. That's impossible in natural systems, but we think we can manage it. So that's what we're trying to do. Those guys are out there doing that work with us. They took hundreds of fin clips off fish this year for DNA sampling, all right, that are in a lab right now, going to get analyzed. Those guys did that. We could have done it with increased capacity and everything, but those guys did it, and I tell you what, they did a bang-up job, very efficient at it, very efficient, and we're always like, oh, nobody can do it better than us, but no, they did a great job, and now that's going to continue, and they have a vested interest in this fishery, all right? We're a player in it, and we welcome it. We welcome it.
Bob brought that up. We talked a little bit about it. What are you guys seeing so far, early stages at looking at those returns? What are you seeing as far as that kind of ratio?
So we don't have anything back yet.
Okay.
We just got our contract through because this is a lot of work, all right? So on the lab side, it's much less work than when we were using the tagging trailer and, clipping 1.5 million fish by hand,
right,
through the trailer, I mean. No, that entailed 120 man days. Now we have a person that's at the hatchery 5 days taking tissue sample off those fish. We have our creel agents taking tissue samples off the fish at large, the offspring at large, and the charter boat captains doing that also, all right? We're saving a lot of money now. But There's also time in the lab to set up the library, set up the lab. We basically are having a great researcher out of SUNY Oswego, Nick Sars, that's going to do this. And it's great because he did this exact work on the same work on in the Pacific Northwest. All right. So we don't have anything back yet. We have 3 years worth of samples sitting there. We're going to get those back soon.
Okay.
We know from previous studies when we marked all the fish, it was about 47%, and it ranged anywhere from between 30 and 70%. So you can see there's a lot of variability in there, but that's what we're managing. We're managing variability, and that variability equates to risk. All right. So we'll have those results pretty soon, we hope. Really super excited about this. So
Yeah.
and I think I think this is really almost a great case study for citizen science.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
it really is. So I'm charged up about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind of started off talking about you did some state of the lake type of presentations. Can you give us a little snippet of state of the lake, Lake Erie, state of the Lake Ontario?
Yeah. So State of Lake Erie, I mean, it was almost embarrassing. I had to give a keynote speech last night
Right.
at the Walleye School, and I said, I really don't know what to say, guys. Got 91 million adult walleye out there. We know now that we have a very good spawning stock population in the eastern basin now, all right?
Mm-hmm.
We were largely dependent on fish from the west. We have a pretty good spawning stock biomass now built up in the east. Things are looking really good, not only now, the good old days are now, but the future's looking good. You know, we joke around, a fisheries manager, you know, if they're halfway through their career, if they're managing a big body of water, and they get a good year class of walleye, it's like, man, I'm done for 10 years because that year class will last 10 years. Well, we've had successful year classes 9 out of the last 10 years on Lake Erie. Don't ask me how this is happening.
Great odds, though. Great odds.
But it is incredible. It is incredible. And we're so fortunate to have this. So Lake Erie is doing very, very well. Lake Ontario is doing well. I know we did the right thing. We cut stocking because we said, look, we're going to take a risk-averse approach to managing this lake. We are not going to have just a bunch of 5-pound Kulak salmon running around. We're not going to collapse that forage space. And you know it was controversial at that time. But the angling public trusted us. We managed adaptively. We looked at data every year. The last year we cranked it up 10%. We're cranking up another 10% this year. Great news. So we had a great 2020 year class of alewives. And then, you know, we had a great 2016 year class of alewives. But what happened there? The only one lone year class got cut more than by a half the next year. We still didn't have that stability. We're finally getting some stability back in the system. We had a good 2020 year class. We have a good 2022 year class. So now we have 2 year classes hanging out there that provide that stability. One gets chewed down a little bit. We still have the buffer of the other. So this is good news and why we were comfortable going up another 10%. And Canada went up even a little bit more. All right. Now, still some things of concern. We're a little worried still the condition factor of age 3 Chinooks in August is still a little bit lower than we would like to see it, all right? But we still felt that the other indicators were good enough to increase stocking flow. And so I think it's a great success story. We're getting over, right? See, you got these guys here, right?
Yeah.
We're getting over this hump.
Right.
All right. You know, we missed a couple of years of lamprey treatment, year and a half basically. During COVID, you know, our friends from Canada couldn't come down and do a bang-up job for us, but you know, it's just the way it was. So we had a couple of year classes that got off on us, but they're going down. We're back on track getting our treatments done. So we're back on track there. There'll still be a little bit elevated wounding this year, I would imagine, but this should be it.
So you'd say we're probably on the uptrend here then from Ontario?
Yes. Yeah, I think you'll see the scoring and wounding go down. I think things are going well. The brown trout fishing, they're out there catching brown trout right now. I mean, the brown trout fishing is just through the roof. And even though it's a very, very small segment of our fishery, the Atlantic salmon fishery has really climbed the last couple of years. We increased our stocking. We changed our stocking rates. I don't know if you saw, we put an Atlantic salmon plan out, okay? We're following that plan, and even though, you know, comparatively, because it's such a small number compared to everything else in the lake, but the increases are dramatically increased, and it's a great fish. It's our native fish, and they're a lot of fun to catch.
Yeah.
A lot of fun to catch.
So you talked a little bit ago when we were talking about Lake Erie, how you can have that 1 year class that can carry your career for 10 years. That's pretty cool. But at Lake Ontario, when we were talking about salmon, it's a whole different animal because you can have a great year class. Well, it's gone in 3 years.
That's right.
So how does that make it a challenge for a guy like you? Because you're always having to balance things because those year classes don't last forever.
And that's exactly why we practice. It's got to be a data-intensive management system, all right? And that's why this parental-based tagging is so important. Knowing, because we're managing a wild fishery, but to manage that wild fishery that's supplemented with stocked, you've got to know how many wild fish you got out there, the proportion. You'll never know the exact number. We can kind of guess, but we have to know that because we don't want to tip the scale too far. All right, and you're right, because the stocking decision we make today is for 2 and 3 years down the road.
Right.
That's why when we look at these tagged fish, it's the proportion of the year one fish. All right, because the year one fish, all right, if we look at that, we carry that out 3 years. That's when the fish we stock this year will be 2 years old. All right, and that's kind of our predator pressure there. Those 2 and 3 year olds. That's what's putting pressure on the prey base. So you're exactly right, and that's why you have to practice adaptive management because it's like this. You're chasing variability. You're chasing variability. So that's what makes it fun, man.
Yeah, it makes it exciting, right?
Yeah.
We do have a question coming in from the audience. This is from Jim Lemon. He says, with natural reproduction in Lake Ontario, there's a rumor of Chinook coho hybrid. Is there any truth to that?
We have heard of that. I have never seen one myself. It's something I could ask Dr. Connaughton when I get back to the office and get back to you about. I've heard that from anglers. I don't know if our creel agents have seen any or not, but I have heard it.
Okay. I talked to Jay Wesley, who manages Lake Michigan for the folks in Michigan a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about a lot of the things we're talking about here. We were talking about prey fish, and they're kind of in the same boat in that they've got a really good crop of alewives in the water right now. But with this warm winter that we've had this year, how do you think that's going to affect your bait fishing in the lake?
Oh, I think the alewife production should be pretty good this year, unless we have a March that's really, because it's not so much the winter, it's that spring season. Okay, when we're going into spring, if it's a really cold spring, it can hurt us. All right, we're still learning a lot about this. We really are. But knock on wood, I think this should be a pretty good production year. As long as it doesn't get too cold.
Yeah.
But these alewives, they've fooled the heck out of me for a long time. So,
yeah, they're trickier than
they've
the game fish.
Up their sleeves.
Yeah. Anything else that you wanted to talk about today that I didn't ask you about?
I think the only thing I'd like to say, Chris, is that, get the word out that fishing is great in New York State, and it's not just the Great Lakes. I mean, I know that's your bailiwick, but, and don't forget the tributaries. They're great fisheries also. And I think people should come here, enjoy this resource, and I think people should tap into us to get to know about our management of the resource. And I think that's very important. And I'm thankful that we have such passionate anglers. Because the commitment of these anglers, I think, as you can see, that they're pretty intense, and I think that's great because we're advocates for the resources that's up for it. And that's most important.
Well, we filmed an awesome video piece in Wilson a couple years ago, and then I'm actually bringing a couple guys from the Pacific Northwest to film some TV stuff in Wilson in May. So
Great.
we're bringing people out here and showing them what you got. And
Excellent.
It's a lot of fun to come out and hang out.
Wilson in May, that's pretty tough to beat.
It's pretty tough to beat.
It's pretty
Exactly.
tough to beat.
They're like, we want to go the Great Lakes and catch some fish. Where should we go? We're like, Wilson in May.
Yep. And the thing is, who would have thunk it? 5 years ago, even 10 years, I'll say, where you were out trolling for brown trout and running into cohosting Chinooks that early in the season.
Yeah.
I mean, when I started out fishing the Great Lakes, in the early 90s, you didn't even think about catching a Chinook until the first week of August, and you're out there trolling your J plugs and stuff. And look at now.
Yeah.
Look at the June fishery now that we have.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible. So.
Well, good job.
We'll
We really appreciate it. Good seeing you.
Much, Steve.
Thanks for coming on.
All right.
And keep up the good work.
Stay in touch.
All right,
Bye.
Steve Hurst from the New York DEC. Really appreciate him coming on and answering some questions and just doing a really good job, I think, explaining what they're up to here in the state of New York. And speaking of being up to something in the state of New York, next guest is Captain Casey Prisco. How you doing, sir?
I'm awesome, guys. How are you?
You know, if I was any better, I'd be you.
I mean, look at this. The only thing I'm missing is one of these sweet new Fishhawk swag hats. I don't know if you guys saw them, but that's pretty. I mean, I was jealous of it the other day.
I've been looking at it too, and I'm like, I need one of
Let's
those.
be honest, that's a sweet ass hat.
it's-
I mean, he makes it look good, but I think
Yeah.
me or you might make it look better.
Don't tell him that.
Maybe. Special edition,
You
baby.
know what this guy kind of reminds me of?
What does he remind you?
Getting a Jackie with some wild ass hair.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
Yeah.
Young Yankee,
Yeah,
not crazy
yeah.
Yankee, young
Yeah,
Yankee.
yeah.
I thought you were gonna say little Yankee.
No, a little Yankee. That would be too. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
He's got some young Hideki vibes
He
to
does.
him.
He
For
does,
sure.
for sure.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
get picked on. I can
How
see it
quick You
already.
eat like a pig, like real fast, like just plow it in your mouth as quick as you can.
Depends if the rods are in the water. Yeah.
Okay.
That's all you need to know, right?
Yeah.
So how was the salmon school today? You taught salmon school.
Salmon school was awesome. Great. What the hell is this?
What do you think it is?
Wow, is that a mounted lamprey eel? Sorry, back to the squirrel. School was awesome. Really, really awesome. Bunch of great guys.
Yeah.
We got through all the material we wanted to get through, which was cool. Had a big question and answering, which I think that's really important because anybody that comes to something where they want to learn, they have something that they want to know. So we had time at the end to go and answer all those questions. Joe Yeager once again knocked it out of the park with all the preparation behind the scenes. Ton of giveaways. Fishhawk giving away some great stuff. It was just a fun time. It's like you get to go talk about fishing with a bunch of guys that love fishing. How much better can it get?
Yeah. How'd Pete do?
Pete, a couple times, I think he's got early stages of like memory loss.
Yeah.
But we got him back on track. You nudge him, hey Pete. He's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
And he had cue cards, so that helped a lot. But he's getting old.
Good.
I find him at the dock sometimes, like Pete, one more tier down, not mine.
Yeah.
That's why I got a blue boat.
Yeah.
So it's like a little separation. Pete knows, oh, I don't have a blue boat, white boat. So it's helping him. Whatever we can do to help.
Yeah. Yeah. So what was the best? You had the Q&A. What was the best question you had today?
How come Rob and Casey catch more fish than Pete? That was a great question.
Yeah.
Um,
What was the answer?
there's not even an answer to that. It's just it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not out there enough. Like he doesn't want to fish the afternoons. He wants to go back in and claim that he's working. I don't know what he's doing in the afternoon, but I know he calls me an awful lot.
Yeah.
So if you're doing work, don't you think you'd stop calling people and focus on your work? My phone rings. What's the score now? Where are you getting them? Where are you at? And that's my whole afternoon trip. I got to tell my people, hey, Pesky Pete's on the phone again. And it is what it is. Some other great questions. Like there were guys that wanted to know about me. There was, do you think Pete can beat you in the Salmon Slam this year? And that was the easiest answer ever. No.
Yeah.
No, I mean, he doesn't even stand a chance. 3 Pete.
Gotcha.
3 Pete against Pete. You know what I mean?
3 Pete. Tell me about those meat rigs.
What do you want to know about the meat rigs?
If I want to get into running meat rigs this year, I've never done it. I've always run a spoon program, and I'm thinking about I want to get into some meat rigs. What do I need to know?
There's a lot of great companies out there that have a lot of great heads, a lot of great products. I like Twinkies. Rob Westcott likes Twinkies. Pete's 50-50. Twinkies or no Twinkies. But I think the consensus was, Diabolical meatheads, John King meatheads, Dreamweaver meatheads. They're pretty much fail-proof. They already have a pretty good roll. I always tell everybody, check the roll before you put it down, obviously. But
What should that roll look like?
you need to have a kick. You don't just want a normal spin. You don't want to spin super fast. You want an abnormal, like, pause and then kick and pause and speed up. It's almost like a
Tail whip. Almost
yeah, kind of like a tail whip. Sure. Thanks, Jackie.
Here we go.
Same thing. That's what you're looking for. Other than that, don't get discouraged. It's it takes time, but once you figure it out, it's super, super rewarding. I think your bigger fish come on meat. I love meat. That's last year I used just over 3,000 pieces of meat for the season. We used just under 1,300 pieces in the month of May in Wilson. So shows you how much I'm using it. That's conservative. With reusing some pieces, probably in a tournament situation I wouldn't have, but I did, and they still caught fish. So
When I see you running meat, when I've been in the boat with you, you're doing a lot of trimming out there. What are you doing there with your scissors?
A lot of the meat I use, I like to cut down just a touch sometimes. Really depends on the bait that's in the water. I'm trying to match the hatch or the size of it. There's times you want to use the full piece of atomic meat, or a smaller piece from the bait. So if you have mag bait, bigger baits. If you have smaller baits, smaller meat. So I cut it down and trim it. I want to make sure that it's getting the right spin. A lot of times, taking a little piece of the belly off is all it takes to get that better roll to it and have a kick. And so every piece gets checked personally by me before it goes in the water. Somebody that I trust. Sorry, kid, you're out.
Oh,
Yeah.
here we go.
Yeah, but other than that, yeah, no, that's key. Is just making sure everything's right before you put it down. Take the extra time, dot your I's, cross your T's, and that's huge with meat fishing.
Sergio, you got some questions for Captain Casey?
How often do you like to check your meat when it's down there when it's not producing?
I guess has it been producing and it just stopped?
Or you're noticing a bunch of streakers on your sonar?
I'm bringing it up and checking it right away. If it looks good, and I put it back down in another 10 minutes, doesn't go, it's coming up. It might get a different rig, and that piece of meat is getting seagull baited.
So pretty much what we had talked about earlier is you got to check that meat once those streakers are coming up and nothing happening. That's the thing with running meat is you got to be proactive. You got to check that roll.
Can't be a lazy fisherman with meat, for sure. Every little bite, if it's down for more than 25 minutes, you're not getting a bite, bring it up, let's check it out. You could have had a drive-by. It could have been bumped up. You didn't see the bite. Your head's up a little bit. Really, there's a lot to it, but there's not once you get good at it. It's kind of repetitive.
Mm-hmm.
Could have had some current hit it. Hook goes into the meat. The meat's not rolling the same anymore. I'm sure you've seen that as well, too.
Sergio Ferreira. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Too bad we couldn't get a picture of Rick right alongside of him, Hey, Trev. Young Rick Ajecki. How about it? Yeah, that's right. It's awesome.
Trevor Assumption walking in behind us, so Casey's got to get Trevor.
Well, I mean, he didn't say no. He's like, yeah, I can see it.
Yeah. See it?
Is it the hair or the tan? Which one is it?
It's all of it.
It's all of it, eh?
Yeah. I mean, you're definitely way cooler than him, too. So, I mean, you're a younger little brother. Little Ajecki.
Yeah. What are you running for meat?
Atomic meat. I did run some Underdog, and I like both. I really do. I think, for the Canadians that can't get Atomic, Underdog's got a great product. And for the Americans that can't get Underdog, Atomic's got a great product. Pacific herring. So I run is herring. I won't run anything else.
What do you think it is about herring in your fishery that makes them go?
So before those fish came here, their genetics are proven to eat herring from the West Coast. So it's in their mind, their program, herring's it. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter where they're at, they're herring eaters. So give them what they like. If you want a steak, am I going to give you chicken? Yeah. You're a steak eater. I'm giving you steak. You know what I mean?
Programmed to like
steak. Medium rare, I hope.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anything more than medium rare? Horrible.
Or lighter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Canadian. They don't have beef over there. Don't even answer it, Jackie.
Sorry, eh?
Hey.
Casey, let's just talk a little bit about Pulaski. I know we were talking about a lot about Wilson. We had you on the other day, but tell me about your home port of Pulaski.
Pulaski is awesome. It really is. So many options. Doing this school, we did a lot of talking about how great it is in Wilson, but I really want to touch on how great it is in Pulaski. Anytime in Pulaski from May on, there's an opportunity to catch a salmon. There's an opportunity to catch brown trout. There's an opportunity to catch steelhead, lake trout. Come June, July, just tell me what you want to catch. You want to go get Lakers? Okay. You want to get salmon? Let's go. You want to get browns? We can do that. And it's just such a versatile place. It's in the corner. Granted, we get a lot of weather. Makes definitely difficult fishing at times, but things you work for and you figure out are more rewarding. And if you can catch fish on that end of the lake, you can 100% catch fish down here. So I think Pulaski is definitely it's an awesome place, especially seeing the adults come back. Stager fishing is an absolute frustrating, exhilarating, fun time at the same thing. I mean, they can drive you nuts, and they can just make you so happy at the same time. There's just it's one day they're on, the next minute they're off, then they're on. They're moody like men.
Mm-hmm.
Not like women. Women are never moody.
No, never.
Never met a moody woman in my life. Besides a Jackie.
Besides the Jack. That's right.
He's a moody bitch.
Yeah.
Is that okay to say?
I don't know. I think after what happened the other night, we've already I've already got the government coming after me.
Fine. Apparently that guy passed away.
Yeah?
Yeah, karma got him. Yeah, I just found out. It was Bobby Songen told me he's no longer around.
All right.
6 feet under.
Good.
Yep, karma. Pull a gun on the goose.
Yeah.
6 feet under.
Yeah.
I had nothing to do with it though. And God. What do you got?
Now you got me off track.
Did he tell you this was gonna go off the rails?
I had a feeling the second I watched you walk
I
up
love
here, I'm like,
these things. Let's talk about you. What's going on with you?
Hanging out in Niagara Falls.
Yep.
Going back to Minnesota tomorrow night.
Yep.
But, one of the things that I've been talking to Trevor about, the thing that I'm fired up about, that maybe that you'd get excited about is, you know what the Keweenaw Peninsula is?
What is it called?
The Keweenaw Peninsula?
Keweenaw Peninsula.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's some good fish in there.
You ever see the UP
Yep.
of Michigan? And there's like that big finger that kind of comes up out of that.
Yep.
It's called the Keweenaw Peninsula.
Okay.
And at the very tip of that Keweenaw Peninsula is the closest point to Standard Rock, which I think we talked about the other day.
Yeah.
But just around the peninsula there, just awesome fishing, and it's wild. There's no, it's just really untouched areas.
Is that
And
in the States or is it in Canada?
it's in Michigan. It's in the UP of Michigan. It's
Okay.
as far north as you can be in Michigan.
So I came across, is it the Sault
Sault Ste. Marie?
Ste. Marie?
Yeah.
I went grouse hunting north of that a little ways.
Okay.
Up in Wawa, Canada.
Yeah.
And I came down, so I was probably pretty close to that. It's some
Probably
beautiful
pretty close.
country there.
Yeah.
great hunting
You know what?
up there, eh?
I did. Oh, great hunting. Yeah. Yep. Not a lot of people, which is nice. And it's
Nope, very remote
beautiful,
area.
beautiful woods. Saw a wolf. Got a ton of grouse, which is what I wanted to go do. Cooper was super happy about that.
Phenomenal eating.
Oh, what's that?
Phenomenal eaters.
Oh yeah, for sure. Beautiful country. Didn't see any moose, but wolf. But yeah, that I can understand why you'd like to go fishing there.
Mm-hmm.
That is just amazing scenery, and if you can get some good fishing on top of that, how do you beat it?
Yeah.
You know.
Kind of want to go, my whole plan when I bought my boat was to get out to Isle Royale. But it still feels a little bit scary to me to get to Isle Royale.
Why?
Not 100% confident in my boat yet. And to get from closest point in Minnesota to the Isle, it's 20 miles. But if let's say you're on the northeast end of the Isle,
Mm-hmm.
from the closest point in Minnesota, it's like a 70-mile run.
It's a hike.
That's a hike.
Yeah, you want to have your
Yeah.
I's dotted and your T's crossed.
Yeah.
You know what you should do?
What should I do?
Well, I've been walking around here, and there's a lot of beautiful new boats. Get yourself a new boat. You are worth it.
I've earned it, right?
You don't even have to earn it. You're worth it. You deserve it.
Yeah,
If anyone deserves it, you deserve it.
that's true.
Who else is worth it more than you? What you?
Exactly.
I am. You are. Jackie, he's probably not so much, but yeah, you can get something too. But
Okay.
you're worth it.
Yeah,
You're only here for so long. Go do it, man.
yeah.
Get a new boat. Take the kid. Tell the wife you're out for a few days. You're going adventuring, and go make a memory.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna do the Keweenaw first.
Yep.
Because I think I can get that same experience, that same feel, without having to make that 50-mile run, and see what that's like, and see how we do, and
You know, God hates a coward.
yeah,
Just go do it.
yeah. Well, here's
Summer months, go do it when it's like if something did happen, not that it's going to. It's not tragic.
another option.
What you got?
I could hire the Casey Prisco of that neighborhood and let them fish.
Yeah,
It'd be cheaper than buying a boat.
I'll tow a boat out there. You can use my boat, and I'll go shoot grouse.
There you go.
I don't mind.
Win-win situation here.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in. Whatever you want.
Yeah. So there's just a lot of cool places in the Great Lakes, and we're here in New York. We're talking about New York stuff, but in my neck of the woods too. A couple hours from Lake Superior. 4 or 5 hours from Wisconsin shoreline to Lake Michigan. So just so many great places to go fishing. A lot of different options and a lot of different experiences. You talk about what you have in Pulaski, the different options and different things there. But then you spend a month in Wilson in the spring too,
Sure.
where you can go a couple miles out and catch all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah. No, it's definitely life's too short not to go experience as much as you can, and it might not always make sense financially,
Mm-hmm.
but mentally you got to realize that you're only here for so long, and buy the ticket, take the ride, man. There's just too many people that say they're going to do it and they're going to do it, and
Never look
one
back.
day never comes. So go do it.
Yeah.
And I'm a perfect example. I'll probably never be rich, but I'm rich with memories, and I'd rather be rich with money or memories than money. So go do it. Live it up.
Can't take it with you, but you can take the memories with you.
That's right.
We've got a couple questions coming in from the audience.
We got
Jim Lemon wants to know if you got any guest captains coming in this year.
do I have any guest captains? Russell Gahagan will not be fishing with Dirty Goose Sport Fishing this year. Sam Wagner will be back. Wags. Captain Roy has joined the team. Roy Letcher, Captain Pat, Captain AJ, myself, Captain Joe. That's about it. No new guys coming in. Just the team I had. You know, there's the old saying, if it's not broke, don't fix it. It's not broken anymore, so we're not fixing it anymore, and we have to. We had a little crack in the glass, and we fixed that glass, and now we're good to go.
All right. Ryan's, this is for me. He says you put your boat on the Ranger and ferry it to Isle Royal. They do have the Ranger, which is the ferry out there. They'll
Kind of
take you
cheating,
up there.
you know. That's like saying you got dropped in by a helicopter. Just do it the right way.
All right.
No guts, no glory.
Full
Sorry,
send.
Ryan.
Full send.
Full send. Mark Peterson's got a question for you. He says, any plans to return to Canadian waters to compete? King of Kings and King of the Lake on the North Shore.
I'll be honest with you. I don't see myself fishing any big tournaments anytime soon, Chris or Mark. My tournament drive has gone away. I think I loved it for a long time. I used to fish 19 events. I mean, I was a tournament junkie. I made it every tournament I could make. I went to, and the little ones, the big ones, and I loved them. But I love chartering. I love seeing people catch their first fish, or just the
You got the same adrenaline rush.
thrill. Yeah, I it does it for me. It's much better than the whole tournament. I don't like the whole lying or not having to tell your friends what you're doing or avoiding your friend when you're over there. I don't like that side of the tournament. It's the ugly side, and I don't think a lot of people talk about that.
No, you don't hear much
Me and
about
your
that.
brother, when I fished, we never talked. Me and Rick, we're close friends, but we never talked about, hey, where'd you go? What'd you do? It was always, hey, good luck. And he'd be like, screw you, Casey, and he'd go. But that's just your brother. He's ugly like that.
I got the good lucks, I guess. Eh?
Yeah, but no, I'll be honest with you. I think it's amazing fishery, and I miss the fishing over there. I mean, if I could sneak a charter over there, I would definitely go because it's definitely some pretty intense fishing over there. But no, I don't ever want to do those tournaments again.
Come see me in St. Catharines. I'll be there in the spring.
No, not coming. You and your brother can have fun.
Well, your brother will be in Wilson with you. How about the Wilson Invitational? You gonna do that?
No,
You're done.
I'm done. I'll do
Holy
the Salmon
cow.
Slam. I'm going to beat Pete in that,
Yeah.
the 1K a day. But the Wilson Harbor Invitational, it's a great event, and it's just, I lost my edge to doing it. I don't have the drive to do it. I get more reward, and it's not even the financial reward. It's just the
Of knowing you created memories
appreciation
for
and
somebody.
reward of taking people out and showing them how great our fishery is, and that's a win for me right there. That's a bigger win than a big check and standing on stage. Don't mean anything to me.
Tournaments take a lot out of you because you're sitting there really thinking about it. It's a whole different side to fishing that people don't see, like you're talking about, like the ugly side where you can't talk to your friends. It's the mental pressure trying to have to be on top of your game because you're at time play. It's very different. It's very, very pressurized type for guys that charter and stuff. It's very different, like you're saying, Casey.
100%.
Casey, somebody else
We got.
just asked about meatheads, and I think you talked about this, but to just maybe touch again on your favorite meathead rig for a whole herring.
The actual rig itself would be a Dirty Goose rig behind a 13-inch Okie Bullfrog fish paddle. Head-wise, it's a Diabolical Bone is the name of the head. Pretty tough to beat that combination. I think you've actually seen it in work a little bit out there when you were at Wilson. Even on Oswego and my end of the lake, it's a fish killer. If you want to put some fish in the box, it's a fish killer.
All right. Very good. Anything else for us, Casey?
You know what I figured out today too? Remember Craig Sleeman?
Yeah.
That walleye guy?
Yeah.
He had a brother.
He looks
Twin.
just like him,
Looks just
doesn't he?
like him. I go, hey Craig, what's going on? And then I realized Craig's got really soft hands.
Yeah.
His brother had like rough hands.
Mm-hmm.
His brother does all the hard work behind the scenes, oil changes, tuning the boats, scrubbing the boats. Craig's getting all this stuff. Let me go to the salmon school. He's doing fish hawk interviews.
Yeah.
That guy should have been on here, not Craig.
Yeah.
You know,
You know what? We'll have him on next year.
I think we should.
I think the cool thing to do would be to have Ethan on.
Yeah. Is
You
that his
interview
name,
Ethan, yeah.
Yeah, he's a nice dude.
Yeah, you interview Ethan, and then bring somebody like you on, and then 20 minutes later, we'll bring Ethan back in, but we'll say it's Craig. And just
I
let
really,
him.
it was
The
like,
old
it was,
switcheroo.
it was
Yeah.
unbelievable. I mean, totally like identical twins,
Mhm.
but you could tell one was way cooler.
I had the same thing
It's like
happen
the
to me
Jackie
this morning.
brothers, the three of them, Craig,
Right?
Sergio, and Rick. Craig and Sergio are really cool, and
Yeah.
Rick's just,
Right. Yep. No, I walked up to Ethan this morning, and I was like, hey, how's it going? He's like, I'm not Craig, right?
yeah, that's what he told me after I shook his hand, and then I realized, like, wow, you're a hard worker.
Yeah.
You're really like, you're doing the hard part, not just taking all of the, spotlight.
Mhm.
Kind of like the Jackie brothers.
Yeah.
Rick, like, he's got to be in the spotlight, and Craig's just doing all the hard work. He's the driver.
Yeah.
He comes up with the best meat rigs. He keeps Rick in line. Some guys don't need to be in the spotlight.
Well, Jim Lemon, you can tell Jim's been paying attention. He said he has rough hands from catching all those willow cats.
Yeah, I'm on the hunt for willow cats after this show.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get myself a couple dozen of them willow cats and see what's going on. I might put them in my pond and sell them to Sleeman.
Yeah.
He's not getting his own. I think he's actually over there acting like a willow cat right now. If you look at him, he's kind of like, I don't know. Right now he's spiking somebody.
That's Ethan.
Is that Ethan?
Yeah.
Shit, I did it again. I can't touch his hand, so I don't know. Are you sure that's Ethan?
Oh, no. It's Craig.
Yeah, see, I knew it. Yeah. You're not like the wife, are you?
No.
Just checking, like, you know what I mean? Like I've seen stuff like that where like, oh man, I kissed your brother. I didn't realize it was,
Yeah.
I mean, that's on the light side. Sometimes you do other things,
All right, Casey. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Appreciate you coming on.
You later,
and
buddy.
getting us tonight.
Keep it real, all right?
I will.
All right.
Good luck to you.
There's Captain Casey Prisco taking off. There was a question here. I'm going to go back to that for Sergio. This is from Vicky Thompson saying, if you stack riggers, how do you set your leads for the top rigger line to the bottom lead?
So for when I'm running stackers, my bottom line will always be 25 feet longer than my bottom line.
Okay.
Sorry, the other way around. My bottom one is always the longest, and my top one's always the shortest.
That'll keep you from getting those tanks.
And the other thing you want to avoid is you want the bigger paddle on the bottom and the smaller paddle on top. You don't want two paddles the same size because you're going to hook up.
Yeah.
You're going to tangle it.
There you go. Our next guest is hanging out here in the green room. I think he's ready to rock. It's Captain Jim Steele. Come on over. Oh. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Good to see you, man.
How's it going, Jim?
Captain Sergio Ferreira with us co-hosting tonight. Jim, how you doing? How's the show been going?
Weather's storm a little bit. People came in after that, a little slow start for some people. Now schools are done and
Yeah.
people are on the floor.
People right back out the door. I mean, there's, I don't know, a couple hundred people in those schools. So when those things empty out,
You really
show
feel it.
floor picks up pretty big.
Yep. They come out with their lists of notes that they put questions on, and now they want to touch and feel,
Yeah, yeah.
which is here they have the ability to do it.
Right. And that's what you guys want as a retailer. So you're a charter captain, you've got Dreamcatcher Sport Fishing, but you're also a retailer here in the show with Innovative Outdoors, your store. You got a TV show, you got everything. That's what your shirt's the Steel Outdoors Group. Tell me what that's all about.
So, like you said, we've got multiple things going on. So we kind of started Steel Outdoors Group because we wanted to send people to one location, and then they could go from there if they're looking for the charter information or retail side or the TV show. We run a tournament, we run a walleye series, we run a walleye derby. So multiple things. I mean, we do a veteran fishing event, so people can go to one place and then basically click from there to follow whatever they need. So kind of just, and it was getting kind of chaotic for us to have how many business cards can they have, how many domains, how many this, that's, everything else. So some people in one location and they can go from there.
Yep. It's a lot easier.
Your wife's hanging out here too. So this is a family operation. This isn't just you. And I saw Rich up there working with you, and Rich is out on the boat with you a lot. These are people that are really important to you and really close to you through all these things you're doing.
It's just we couldn't do this without having the support of family and friends, and even if they don't do it or they don't really understand it, they back us all the way and support us. And my dad's run a few deliveries up for us because we're not home when it's showed up, and so that's a great thing. And seeing all you guys, I mean, that's the fishing family, something that it's a whole outdoor industry that
Mhm.
if you don't know what you're missing.
Right.
So if you never get into it.
That's right.
Yeah, you see a lot of hugs in this room, and we can hear right behind us. There's a lot of laughing. I mean, it is like kind of going into a family reunion when you come to these places.
It's just like every time, it's just like when we saw you guys when we first came in, it was just like, oh, great seeing you again. It's been, like you said, it could be a couple years, it could be a couple days, and it's still the same hug.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk some fishing. Let's talk Dunkirk. That's your home port.
Yeah.
Tell me about that place and what it's like.
So kind of I was at another location. I moved to Dunkirk because it kind of had the best of multiple things. The docking, great docking with the marina, a boat launch, fish cleaning stations, fuel. We have a hotel that's close, multiple hotels. We have some eateries around there too. So it kind of a one stop for a lot of people, especially I'm getting a lot
Great
of
ice cream shop.
Oh yeah,
Great ice cream
pizza.
shop.
So now we're getting a lot of people from out of state.
Mhm.
So it's a great ability for me to say, well, you can come into town, you can stay here, and you can go from there. One of the biggest things was the fishery. Where I was before, it was predominantly just a walleye. We might get some steelhead here or there, but
Yeah.
now on the Dunkirk side, with the deeper water and the structure and everything else, we can, if we want to stay in shallow, we can get our walleyes. We pick up some smallmouths, and we get our steelhead. We push off deeper, we can get up 25, 30-pound lake trout.
Nice.
So I take a walleye trip out. It's a charter. I'm going to get you our walleyes. Once we get to the point from there, if it's a 4-hour charter, we're fishing for 4 hours, not going back in. We'll get limits and everything else, and we'll go push out and have some fun with some other stuff, or talk to the client and what do you want to fish for? So that's like when you came out with us, it's just like let's fish for everything that we could catch.
Right.
So we went out a little deeper areas so we could get some walleyes and we could get some lake trout and stumble across the steelhead or whatever else. So
Yeah.
great ability to have a mixed bag on the trip, and makes it fun on my side because now I can play some multiple lure games in different areas and surprise the client.
Never know what
Reel
comes out of the water.
reel this one in.
Right.
I know what it is.
Yeah.
You don't.
Right. Yeah, it's a lot of fun fishing out of there because, like you say, you don't know what's next, and you've got some great walleye fishing there as well. But the day that I was with you, we went out and caught steelhead and lake trout. It's just there's a lot of different options there, and when you're a captain, that's got to be a great thing knowing that you've got so many cards in your pocket.
Oh yeah. And it's nice too because there we have our New York State DEC. The actual research boat is on our dock too, so we get to kind of kick some stuff back and forth with them. They use some information we have, and we look for information from them. So it's kind of nice to have that open communication. They were here shaking hands and talking and talk. And just, it's great to have that basis where it's they're same level of talk instead of I'm a biologist and everything else. And biology, fishermen, we're same page, just a little different degrees.
Right. Yeah, we just actually had Steve Hurst on here just a little while ago, and one of the things that Steve talked about that I think is probably super interesting for you is that there's just becoming more and more of a walleye population that calls your area home, where maybe in the past it was more dependent on migratory fish.
Yes. So that was years ago when I was more of a trout and salmon guy, and then when the walleyes were coming, when they were here, and I would fish them and fill the cooler, fill the freezer, and everything else. Then I would go back, and you might get some of the local fish here or there, but the concentration was then I would go back and mess with muskies or whatever else. Then it started becoming where we relied on the migration, never really fished our resident fish, and now a lot of guys are starting to understand we could fish those resident fish and do it consistently and get a bag.
They don't have such a short window anymore.
So it extended the window, so pretty much now we can fish from the beginning of the season with ice out. Pretty much our only restriction is one of the docks in and one of the docks out. So the fish are there the whole time.
Perfect.
So they've always been there, and we just never pursued it. We've got a great residue amount of fish, and especially with the river system, those fish can transition into the river, out of the river. So that's a great asset we have too.
Yeah.
Canadian shore, U.S. shore, a couple tail kicks, they can be just about anywhere.
There's still some seasonality though to the fishery, so kind of go through some of that as far as like when's the best time of year to target each of those species that you guys have there.
So on our walleye side, our biggest thing is if we're dealing with, if we have a solid ice, or if like this year it should be actually a faster, like I said, we have our migration, so we have our local fish, but migration, that's going to push the fish sooner than, because the water temperature is going to come up quicker, so they're going to move faster. So we're going to get into them quicker. So normally in the mid-June is where we start seeing better numbers and better catch rates for the walleye. The quicker the water comes up, the earlier that starts. Before that, like bass-wise, our smallmouth bass is just incredible. And then we move through steelhead with water temps, so they're out there. Lake trout, that's kind of a given as long as they're out there. But so that's really season-wise, predominantly. If you're looking, June is a good start. July is great. August is kind of the hot time because that's when most people are fishing it. I would say if you're looking for great fish numbers, the quality of the fish, September's really good. The only problem with September, you start getting into the wind, which creates problems with our waves and everything else. And on the charter side,
September's never forgiving.
yeah, and the things, I'm one of those guys that I want the experience to be great for the clients coming out. So I could take you out there and yourself, your boat can take it, you can take it, but when we take people out that aren't on the water all the time,
You can really ruin that experience.
Somebody. So I want them to have a great experience. I'll do whatever I can to move the trip or bump it back or whatever I can, because to me we're salesmen out there too. So.
Yeah, we don't feel the weather as much as people that don't regularly fish or grow on the boat. It's very different.
Yeah. So that's kind of the difference. I'm not sure where I went with that, but
Yeah. Well, speaking of boats, you got a couple different ways to take people out. Tell me about the boats you're running.
So now it's been, I don't know how many years, but I run a 31 Tiero, so 12-foot beam, and pretty much like fully rigged, big top. For the families, it's great because it's got the whole sun cover and everything, wind, waves, whatever, but it has down berth with flush toilet. Okay, that's nice for a lot of people. And then, like, I've always wanted a second boat, which when I got the big boat, I had one, and I sold it, and I thought I was going to replace it, and boats are hard to find. So I've been shopping around, so I ended up stepping into a Vexus last year, and it's been a great relationship between Vexus himself with the reps, and then the dealership itself, just great. And that platform it's a DVX 22, and it's set up rigged the same as my big boat. So other than just shrinking the platform down, everything, rod holders, the trees, everything is the exact same setup, just in a boat that now I can go from port to port. And I can go to different lakes. I can do everything else. So now I have a big boat stationed in Dunkirk, and I can pretty much fish anywhere for any other species with that boat, which is what I wanted. I want a multi-species so I can do multiple things. I did years before. I don't want to be just a big trolling boat. I want to be able to target some of these other things and bounce around with it. And it's
really nice to have that versatility between a big boat and a small boat.
Yeah.
Small boats, actually, you see those for a lot of tournaments. People want to run the smaller boats. They're faster, they're more versatile in sharp turns, getting into the shallower waters. There's a big difference when you play on the.
Yeah, so we fish a bunch of tournaments, and that was one of the big things too. Is we wanted to have more of that tournament style boat. It was funny because our tournament, it wasn't the best weather conditions we had. There was no small craft advisory, and everybody was just like, "Are you going to run the big boat? Or are you going to run the Vexus?" And I'm like, "No, the Vexus. There's no reason to go anywhere different with it."
Tournament days, it never fails. Those are the windiest days, rainiest days. It never fails. As soon as the word tournament comes, look at that weather for that week. It never fails.
So yeah, that's been a fun thing. It's a whole different world from going with the big boat, which I'm used to. Okay, so 3-footers,
You won't really feel this.
I put the autopilot on, get the throttle set. Most of the time I'll stretch my feet across the other side. Okay, we'll get to our spot, start fishing. It's just like, okay, with the concept, I got to get on top of them, stay on top of them, and everything else. But it's been a great thing. Like you said, with Diane, she was nervous about going into something, she's like the small boat, and like it's not a small boat. It's it's a 22, so it's just under 22 feet, and it's just like, it's not small. Got good things on it, and she's been comfortable with it, so that was one of the big things too. I'm like, if she feels comfortable, any other people I bring out,
You feel comfortable as well.
It was just a little different concept of getting on top of them and going and everything else, but we could get there quicker and a lot more fuel efficient.
Oh, big time. Big time.
You talked a little bit about having that boat set up really similar to your big boat, rod trees, things like that. Tell me about what you're running for trees, riggers, those kind of things.
So I've been a track tech guy for years. They've done everything they wanted to, and kind of gone through a transition of basically being a customer to basically being kind of on the pro team to going into actually selling some of the stuff and on the path multiple times became good friends with them and everything else and the equipment. It's nice to be with a company they're building stuff inside and from they're fishermen, so they understand the concept of it and everything else. So that's
Quality, versatility.
stuff. And I mean, there's multiple companies out there and for each their own. And like I set up tree wise and module wise and downrigger. I mean, it's the whole setup. This boat, I didn't just on the Vexus, I didn't put riggers on it. We'll be building a new one. That one's going to have two downriggers on it. So I can actually do the same exact thing with the big boat compared to the small ones, right?
What do you like about the Trax Tech riggers?
The redundant counter, because you know that the actual job fitting, the quality of the components and stuff like that. I would say I don't use equipment. I use things like finishes, stuff like that. Nothing is everything is heavy duty. You're not overbuilt. Anything is that if there's a problem, it's going to be taken care of. So it's just like I don't kind of have a. I feel like every time I go out, I have a support team that's behind me that if there's a problem, I can get it worked out. It's going to go with quality equipment and stuff like that. And supply chains and everything else. So problems nowadays with everything, everywhere, all the manufacturers. So you really can't blame that on
No, you cannot.
things. It's just kind of changed a lot of things. And it's an excuse for a lot of things. So, so we deal with it, but it's most of the time it does have nothing express to do. And one of the things is all the products that I use and all that, I have my expectations. I like to deal with companies that actually fill those expectations. So the weekend guy that, I mean, this is the stuff that I'm using day in, day out as a profession. So weekend guys make more than happy with the quality. I mean, the analyzing is, you can beat the heck out of it. It's not coming off. It's not the weather, you know. So my big boat sits out in the weather the whole season. Looks good, just as good as there's times where I'm like, well, maybe I should put some new stuff on. You know, they look just as good as the new ones. Drag them up a little bit. Yeah.
Exactly.
Tell me about the electronics you're running.
So when I got the big boat, it had Marine on it, so I kind of stuck with it. We kind of put a CPU on it to kind of extend the range of the sonar. Got a lariats on the back. I'm kind of one of those guys that I kind of don't have a specific. I look for things that are going to do the job I want them to. The Vexus, they had hummingbirds on it. Did a lot of research, and I was looking for good graphing, but I was looking for more on the plotter side of it. And with lariats, you can't beat the plotter setups.
No, Lawrence, fantastic.
And then hummingbird, they had certain things. So like on the Vexus side, had a hummingbird. So the side imaging, that was huge for me, and the graphing on that was great. But with the VX cards in them, that the colors on it and all that whole section there of plotters is great. So like I said, I can't match any one of them. I bounce around a bunch of them. The Garmin stuff intrigues me. Like I said, everyone kind of has their thing that intrigues me. And if I had to pick one, I'd probably pick one of each. And like I got a lot of friends that are bass guys, and they're like, "Look at a bass boat. Let's tend to have 3 different brands on it." So that didn't answer your question. I don't have a specific thing. I'll do the job that I want them to, or I go to something different. So and what I'm looking for, a lot of it might be different than somebody else.
Very good, Jim. I appreciate you coming on. Sergio, you got anything for Captain Jim before we let him go?
Yeah, just curious. So because you're fishing walleye and trout, what kind of gear are you running more towards? I'm just curious. I'm intrigued about this.
So as in So all my gear, like what I do is all my gear stuff kind of on the salmon side. I go with the heavier stuff, heavier lines and everything else, and I fish my walleyes on it in fluorocarbon. So it doesn't matter if you're running a 30-pound or if you're running a 10-pound, fluorocarbon's going to secure anyway. So I've always been I'd rather have more than less, especially because now we could get into we're fishing 6, 7, 8-pound walleyes. Now we get a steelhead that jumps in there at a 10-pound flying through the air or a 25-pound Laker. I want to have the gear to be able to.
You want to be ready because you never know what's coming.
Yeah, so even like my lead cores, I would 27-pound lead core, 30-pound lines and stuff like that. So I don't downsize all it. I'm not a 10-pound walleye guy, so
Yeah.
it's everything's all beefier, bigger, and it works. So
Spoon, like more spoons. Are you towards worm harnesses, body baits? What do you like to go?
So I could throw you a yes. So I throw the gamut. The only thing is I kind of got away from worm harnesses years ago just for the convenience of it. I always tell people at CALs, it's like having a dog in your boat. You have to keep them cool. You have to keep them wet, but not too wet. And you got to get home, pull them out, put them in the fridge and everything else. So most of our stuff is stick baits in this area, like everybody else, it's crankbait. I always joke because the other guys around here, it's a crankbait. I'm like, we don't crank them, so we call them stick baits around here. So between that, I've been messing around with a lot more spoons. I've always done some spoon routines, but a lot more than I used to.
Yeah.
I'm the guy that even for walleyes with a rigger, I'll run a slider on it and stuff like that. And so it's a mixed bag of everything, but I would say predominantly stick baits, and then spoons. I always stick with shallow divers because I'm using something as a dive source, either a rigger, a tipsy, lead or whatever else. I like the shallow divers because it has a quick erratic movement.
Yeah.
Instead of having the deeper dive where it's a slow steady. I want that fast action, that trigger fish. So kind of one of the things I've played with for years. So it works.
Awesome.
So
I appreciate you coming on, Jim. We got
Thanks
our
for
next
having me.
guest hanging out
All right,
for us.
thank you very much.
all right.
Come on, but it's Captain Jim Steele from Dream Catcher Sport Fishing, the Steele Outdoors Group. Thanks, Jim. Marc, come on over. Last guest of the night, and Sergio's going to like this. Bring another one of his fellow countrymen over.
Yeah.
It's Captain
We got
Marc
two
Kulak. How
Canadians
you
now. We
doing?
got two Canadians.
I'm good. Put this on me
You can
somewhere,
put it
right?
on if you want. Otherwise, we've been just having them hanging out right there, too, either way.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So you attended the salmon school today. Tell
I
us
did.
how it went.
It was good. You know what? It's always a great day to join the salmon school.
Mhm.
I think I've been doing it now 6 or 7 years. Missed obviously the COVID years where it wasn't run.
Mhm.
But you know what? It's always good to hear it from the different captains. Captains this year, Pete, Casey, and Rob were awesome. And you always learn something. Like
Yeah.
the moment you think you know everything about fishing, you might as well quit because
Right.
you got the wrong attitude, right?
Right.
So I think, it was great to hear from them, listen, pick up a couple of tips, and frankly, it just gets the blood going through the veins.
Mhm.
You're itching to get back out there now, right?
Makes it worse. It really makes it worse.
No, it's giving me motivation now. It's giving me motivation. I've been spending all winter painting tackle for other people, so like for me now, it's like okay, got to start getting my own stuff ready. So,
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things I think when people see your YouTube channel, King's Landing Sport Fishing, they're like, and this guy could be teaching this salmon school. Why are you going to it? And I think, that was somewhat of an explanation, but what do you get out of that when you sit there?
You know what? You're always learning. Like I love doing my YouTube channel, love sharing the videos, helping people out. I'm here and I get all kinds of folks come up thanking me, and it's, that's great. Like honestly, it feels wonderful to have people thank you. I don't do it for that, but it just feels nice, right?
Mhm.
I just do it to help people out.
But then you come to you come to an event like this, and you're always learning. And I talked a bit about at the show, but I can jump on one of my buddies' boats, another charter captain out of my marina's boat, and no matter what you think you're picking something up. You're learning something every day. So, I think I can't remember who it was on today said you can learn something from the worst angler, like because you'll always still learn something. So, my attitude is don't think you know what you don't think you know everything, because you don't. You're always picking something up, and whether it be coming to salmon school, I watch all kinds of other YouTube videos. I fish with different people throughout the year, whether it be people I tournament fish with, whether it be just the people I jump on their boats the odd time if I got some time off. It's fun, and honestly, like credit where credit's due, because I can tell you, like when I'm planning a YouTube video,
it's often taking me hours to figure out what I'm going to talk about in a 5 to 10 minute video. So you can just imagine the time that these three guys have taken with Pete, Casey, and Rob to put that salmon school together. Like they've probably got weeks of work to put that together. So you know, it's I love doing the Lotsa show. It's a great salmon school.
Sergio?
It is wonderful. Like Mark said, anytime you fish with somebody else, you're gonna pick up something new. It doesn't matter if you're gonna pick up a good habit, you're gonna pick up a bad habit too. Be like, hey, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't do this. I've been doing this wrong the whole time. Things like that.
Yep.
So it's like Mark said, don't think you know it all, because chances are you probably don't, and you're gonna learn something different. Maybe it's tying something a different rig, maybe running a rig a different style, maybe running a different type of rod setups. Even that changes your game on the water, how you're going to produce fish.
And it's validation too. I think the other piece is you might do something one way, then you hear from a couple of well-respected anglers, and you go, you know what? That's validation. I'm on the right track, right? So yeah, they're great schools.
There's something today that you learned that you can tell us that you didn't think about before you walked in the room today.
I could tell you. So I'm a big fan of electronics, and I've got the Panoptix on the boat. I've had the Panoptix now for a couple of years. I've been using it though, the PS30, for 3 years. And the first year I had it the standard configuration, so call it like the port starboard configuration. And the first year I got a little frustrated because I'd see the fish coming in, but I didn't know where they were in my spread. They kind of get lost between the cannonball and the flasher, but I couldn't physically see where they actually were. So when I put it on my boat, I put it in the flip configuration, where it's like we call it north-south configuration. So I can see in front of the boat, and I can see behind the boat. And I love that configuration. I know Casey thinks completely otherwise. And that's okay, because different opinions matter. And I think the right answer is both, actually. Both ways have their merits, and there isn't actually a perfect solution. But, he was talking today about the Panoptix. And, the one thing he made a ton of sense about was by having the standard configuration, he goes, pay attention to which side of the screen the fish are coming in from. He goes, because if you're going to have to make a turn, he goes, are you going to turn in if the fish are all coming from the outside?
Right.
No, you're going to turn out, right? Whereas for me, in my configuration, I can't see that. But what I can see is I can see the fish coming at the front of the boat, and I'm notorious now for adjusting riggers before they even get to me. But, these different things, and it's making me scratch my head, because I'm actually adding the Garmin LVS 62 this year on a pole. So I'm actually now going to flip my PS30 back into standard configuration, because I'm now going to have the new live sonar that'll go 500 feet back on a pole that I can point wherever I want. So you hear these little things, and like again, there's no right or wrong answer, but it's the merits of which way you can configure something. You can configure something in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I think that definitely got me thinking again.
So you touched on a little bit there, but what got you going on getting the live scope when you've already got Panoptix on the boat?
I'm a tech junkie. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I think the Garmin PS30, it's a great system, but as you do start getting deeper and deeper, you lose resolution. I'm not afraid to fish deep. This, in Toronto this year, my deepest king came at 255 foot rigger. So I'm not afraid to go deep. Yeah. That's where the LVS 62 was specifically designed. It was designed for the salt to go really deep. So that was honestly one of the main reasons I bought it. The other thing is, and the reason I flipped the transducer last time is, I like to be able to see where my cannonball is, where my flasher is, and where my bait is. And I can do that to some extent with the PS30, but the depth limitations are there. With the LVS 62, I've got a good friend of mine has it. You can see the Twinkie flies in that thing. That's the level of resolution that was reduced. So that was a big part of it.
Yeah.
And then having the ability now, with it on a pole, I fish out of Toronto. I fish on the famous Toronto drop. I can be fishing right on the ledge, and I can be, let's say, on the 150, 170 line, so on the deep side, just on the edge. And I can now, with this new one on the pole, I can, instead of having it shooting behind the boat, I can say, I'm going to turn that shallow, and I'm actually going to look at the 80-foot ledge, and I want to see what's going on there. So I can now start taking the guesswork out of, am I going to turn in because I think there's fish shallow? No, I can shoot the transducer 500 plus feet and actually see what's there, or vice versa. I can be on the shallow side and fire it into the deep side. So I think that's one of the big reasons for me. I want to be able to actually start honing in on the structure, because on the Canadian side, especially, whether it be on the Niagara Bar, whether it be on the Toronto drop,
there's a lot of structure that I think can really be beneficial by using that LVS 62 and not having to actually go there with the boat, but scan. That's what the bass guys are doing. They're using this live scope to scan areas and not fish them.
Right.
Well, why can't we do that?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask you next because, my home waters are Minnesota and Wisconsin, and people have been using live scope for ice fishing now for 6-7 years. And it used to be, if you talk to a tournament guy and went, how do you fish? They'd be like, I Swiss cheese the ice, I'm going out and checking all these holes and dropping my deucer in them. And now they drill one hole, they can shoot and they can see 100 yards all the way around them.
They know where to go.
And they're able to eliminate water much faster. So how do you see this kind of revolutionizing as more and more people figure it out? Like we're seeing in Minnesota right now in the open water too, is all these drop shot guys now are using live scope and they literally go, it's right there, it's 30 feet out, and they bobber fish, they drop it right on top of their head. I mean, how do you see this thing changing the way that we fish for salmon and trout?
Yeah, I think I think the one thing is we're always moving, right? So I think we're always moving. I'd say it changes a couple things. If I think about like this, I've been using a PS30 for 3 years, 2 years on my own boat, and previous year on a friend's boat. That started to help me understand like what were the fish doing? Was there a particular rig that was bringing the fish in? So sometimes you'd see them, sometimes you see them come into a high rigger and then suddenly shoot down, and you kept seeing the high rigger bring them in, shooting down. Well, before I had the Panoptic, sometimes like that higher rigger is doing nothing. I'm going to change it up. Right. The moment I change it up, my spread's dead. I didn't know that's what was happening. It was actually the high rigger bringing them in, and then they were biting somewhere else. So it's all about, there's a saying, a fool with a tool is still a fool. You got to be able to interpret the data, right? So it's interpreting what it's actually doing. So I think that's the first piece. Sometimes in my flip configuration, I can see a fish, is it on my flash or my bait, or is it actually infatuated with my cannonball? If it's the cannonball, then I probably need to short my leaders, right? Because it's actually, they're not interested in the flash or it's too far away. I like to run a longer leader most times, so I can start playing with leader lengths. If the fish keeps coming in and they're following my rig and they're not biting, I got to change. It doesn't like something. Like the fish don't like something. I got to start changing. So I think, if you interpret it, you'll get more bites. That's the first thing. I think the second piece, though, is kind of what I touched on. I think with some of the newer, higher powered stuff, and the stuff that is directional, so you can actually tell it where you can face it where you want to face it. You can take out some of that searching or guessing work, right? You can be fishing a line that you've got some level of confidence, and you can be scanning somewhere else. You can be scanning 500 feet in front. Like I'll tell you, the walleye guys fishing Bay of Quinte in the fall, they're all using the 62 or the 34. And they've got it set facing forward the entire time. And you go, why is that? They're seeing walleye in front of their boat, and as they're going through them, the walleye are doing this, and actually they're on the port, the starboard, or they're going super deep. When they go deep, they're inactive because you've spooked them, or they're going to the side. And they'll literally turn the boat and make sure that they're now dragging their gear right through that school of fish. Right? People don't think about it that way. They're thinking they got to look behind at their gear. No, they're actually using it to look in front, to see where the fish are, or like what I'm going to start doing is using it to scout, on either side of the boat, and especially on structure. If I'm on the deep side, what's the shallow side look like? If I'm on the shallow, what's the deep side look?
Avoid straining water.
Yeah, so it's less having to run through water just to see what's there and actually scanning it. So I think it's just good, but again, it's all about how you use the data.
Yeah, I got a buddy that fishes a bunch of inland lakes, and he's been doing it, for years and years, and he's like, I always thought when I pulled in someplace, the fish would do this. And he's like, what I'm seeing with live scope is they're just going deep.
Go down, yeah.
They're just going down. They're staying basically right in the same spot, but they're going down.
Yeah, and any other piece I'd say with whether it be live scope or Panoptic, you see if the fish are active or not. Like if you're going through fish that are not active, with a 2D sonar, that'll be like the greatest picture, and you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna get bit, but actually no, you're not. Those fish do not care less, right? So that's where I think the line. I love the live sonar. I've had it now in my own boat for 2 years. I don't even look at my 2D anymore. Like my 2D is on the dash, and like I can't tell you the last time I actually looked at it. So I'm looking at the PS30. I can't wait to put the LVS 62 on. When I originally bought the LVS 62, I was toying with selling the PS30. I instead went and bought another 10-inch screen for the back of the boat so I can literally have the two of them stacked and see the two, because I just think they're going to actually tell me different things.
Got some fans of your channel popping in here. And again, Marc's channel is King's Landing Sport Fishing on YouTube. Jim says, how was the walleye fishing? Do you got walleye fever now?
You know what? My friend John Sipko got me out to Bay of Quinte about 2 or 3 times this year. It was fun. No offense to walleye guys. Little boring when you compare it to a screaming king salmon. But I can tell you, like, my wife and I love eating walleye, so that was probably the highlight for me, was keeping the odd keeper that I could keep. There was a slot limit, so keeping the odd keeper was nice. But it extended my season. I got a few extra days. The only challenge is from really middle of May until end of September, my wife would say that she's single. So I can't take on too many more hobbies or too many more fishing hobbies. There's a reason I don't ice fish. There's a reason I wasn't walleye fishing. So I can probably get away with a few walleye trips a year, but if I get too heavy into walleye, I'll get divorced.
All right.
And that's not a good thing because it's very expensive, and I do love my wife.
Yeah, there's
so,
nothing more expensive than that.
Yeah. So, but no, walleye was
Boats
good.
are cheap compared to that.
Walleye was good, but I'm a salmon fisherman. I love salmon fishing. My wife would kill me if I start fishing 12 months of the year. I'm literally like from May 15th until September 30th. I'm not around.
Yeah.
Right.
Here's another fan of your channel. Says, how about some more video content? More, please, from the Meat Man.
So, Mr. Meat Man, I'm gonna start by saying I apologize. I think some people know, some people don't know. I not only do I have my charter business, I've got my business projectsalmon.ca, which is a lot of meat rigs, flashers, and salmon tackle. That started off as a hobby for buddies that turned into something I never expected. And it has turned into an incredibly busy and successful business for me. So now every spare minute, I am literally painting salmon flashers and meatheads, tying rigs, and really running that business. So it has really impacted the channel. I do hope to get some more videos out shortly. I probably will do a bunch more when I get the boat in the water in the spring. But yeah, the flasher and the tackle business have been doing really well. I started that business really trying to bring quality tackle to Canadians, because it was so hard for Canadians, frankly, to get good tackle in Canada, get the unique custom stuff that we get here in the United States, and then it was really expensive. So I've been doing that, but what's got interesting is not only do I service now Canadians, some weeks I ship more to the United States than I do Canada. So it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
But what people don't know is I have a full-time job as well.
Right.
So I've got a full-time job. It's a big job. I've got the charter business that I run pretty steady in the summer, including taking almost all my vacation time to be on the water, and now this tackle business. So I don't like to sleep. So something has to give, and I am married as well. So that's trying to figure out all these things at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not easy. It's not easy. No.
Sounds like you're probably bored a lot.
Yeah. When I have nothing to do, I'm not a happy man. So, yeah.
All right. Here's another question from Rob. He says, wondering what you recommend in regards to reels for wire dipsies. He says he's heard a lot of different opinions between high speed and regular.
Yep.
What do you recommend?
So I'll tell you first what I run on my boat, and no one likes this answer because you can't buy them anymore, but I'm a fan of the old Dakotas, right? So I run Dakota 700s, Dakota 800s predominantly on my boat. I do have a few Dakota 600s that are on, I've got maybe like a couple of 2 colors, 3 colors, 4 colors in the 600s, but all my rigger rods are Dakota 700s. I like the larger reel, larger capacity. Part of the reason I think I like the larger reel is actually a bit of that ratio question. The old reels didn't have a high-speed ratio, so by having the bigger reel, I got more line, bigger spool. I'm kind of getting a similar effect on those rigger rods. When it comes to my divers, I run the Dakota 700s predominantly. That being said, I do have a few friends that have been running some of the newer Dakotas for the divers. I just again like the bigger reel. That being said, I've been looking at, I think it was the Daiwa Saltis. I think they've got the high speed. That looks really interesting. I've said to a few folks, if I need to upgrade my Dakotas, I'm not sure yet. I'm going to go to the new Dakotas. I might go to the Daiwas, actually.
The Saltis are really good. I actually have a couple, and they're really great. Thing you got to watch out when you're chartering clients, if you've seen this, Marc, people get excited and they start cranking it faster, just reeling faster. a lot of the cases what's going to happen if the drag's not set right, you're going to rip the hook out of its mouth, especially with the high drag,
speed, yeah.
the high speed. That's going to be an issue. So if you're a person that can control your reeling, I definitely recommend the 6-to-1, 100%. If it's somebody that's new or you're taking a lot of guests out that've never fished before, I definitely recommend the slower wheel to maintain that higher hookup ratio.
Very good. Great answer, guys.
Absolutely.
Anything else before we wrap up? Hey, we'll give everybody one last shot here. This is the, there it is, Captain Sergio, hashtag Captain Sergio, one last chance to get into the drawing. But guys, anything else, any closing thoughts before we let you go here?
I think all of us, I know I'm just excited to get back out on the water. And, you know, I just say to folks, like, just always be learning, whether it be coming to these events, whether it be coming to, you know, fishing with other people. I think about, like, I've been fishing out of the same marina now for probably, well, since I was 14 with my dad. You know, I'm 47 this year, and I tell you, I learned new spots to fish right by my marina last year. So just exploring different spaces all the time. So, like, just my advice to folks, constantly be learning, try new stuff. Don't
Be open-minded.
Yeah, don't try new stuff on the days when you can't get a bite, because nothing's gonna work probably most of those days. But try new stuff on those days that work. Keep opening your mind.
Yeah. Good stuff, Sergio.
I'm pretty much just excited to get out there. Like, our tournament circuit starts in April, King of the Lake. Marc, you're usually there with me.
I'll be there.
Yeah, usually there, and we usually meet up back in Toronto at your home port there for the Tight Lines tournament. So we bump into each other quite a bit.
I look forward to those tournaments after chartering all the time. Can't wait for those. That's my time off.
Very good.
Time off. It's time to do your thing with your friends, relax, get some laughs going. It's whole, like we were talking with Casey, it's a whole different game between tournament fishing and fishing with clients. It's very different. Very, very different.
All right, let's hit the drawing here. We got 50 entries. Let's see who's going to win.
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
It's Patricia Viviares. Congratulations, Patricia. They're closing down the show as well. Sounds like they're going to kick us out. Thanks so much, guys. Thanks.
I'm driving back to Toronto right now. So
Safe travels, buddy.
See you on the flip side.
Sergio,
Thank you very much. No
Thanks
problem.
everybody for watching. We'll be back tomorrow, and it's a noon Eastern show. Captain Pete Alex will be hosting, and that'll be it. That's the last session from the show. But thanks everybody. We'll see you tomorrow.